going to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. Today's May 8th, 2025. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Wagner, would you mind leading us in the pledge? If you could stand, please, and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Scott. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Miami. It's great to see you all here. It's a special day for us. We have two swearing-ins, and I'm pleased to welcome Mr. Thomas Hurley and Mr. Robert A. Spotswood, Jr. They were both appointed by Governor DeSantis on April 9th to serve on the Governing Board. They both represent the at-large East Coast District, East Coast area of the district, including St. Lucie, Martin, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, and Monroe counties. Mr. Hurley is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Becker Holding Corporation. Active in his community, he's a member of the Young Presidents Organization and previously served as a member of the Boys and Girls Club of Martin County in the Miami branch of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. He earned his bachelor's degree in psychology from Duke University and his master's degree in business administration from Northwestern. Mr. Spotswood Jr. is the president of Spotswood Companies, Inc., Spotswood Management, and Keystar Construction. He's also a partner at Spotswood and Sterling PPLC. He currently serves as a member of the South Atlantic Fisheries Management Council and is a board member of the Nature Conservancy and the Fish and Wildlife Foundation of Florida. He earned his bachelor's degree in food and resource economics from the University of Florida and his Juris Doctorate from Nova Southeastern University. Also present today, I think, is Mr. Spotswood's fiancée, Stephanie, and his 4 children, Florence, Eleanor, Robert III, and Helen. Mr. Hurley and Mr. Spotswood are going to join me at the dais, and we'll do the swearing in. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Thomas Hurley,
Solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform the duties delegated to me by law
faithfully perform the duties delegated to me by law
as a member of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District,
as a member of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District,
to which I have been appointed,
to which I have been appointed,
and I will uphold my duties and obligations to the citizens of South Florida.
and I will uphold my duties and obligations to the citizens of South Florida.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Robert Spotswood,
Solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform the duties delegated to me by law
I will faithfully perform the duties delegated to me by law
as a member of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District,
as a member of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District,
to which I have been appointed,
to which I have been appointed,
and that I will uphold my duties and obligations to the citizens of South Florida.
and I will uphold my duties and obligations to the citizens of South Florida.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but the clerk, and the clerk gave it to us. We didn't do it like that. Good memory, Scott.
Congratulations, Mr. Hurley, Mr. Spotswood. If there's any board member who'd like to congratulate them as well, please feel free. I think we all do. As you can see, some of us, not me, are wearing purple. We're doing so in support of Water Reuse Week, recognized May 18th through the 24th this year. Reclaimed water is typically delivered through purple-colored pipes, thus our enthusiasm to wear purple today. When reclaimed water is used, it eases the demand on traditional, often limited supplies of water. There's a resolution supporting Water Reuse Week on the consent agenda, item 25, and Drew, I think you're also going to be speaking about this during your executive director's report.
That's right, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. This meeting is going to be live streamed today, and when we hold board meetings off-site, we don't have the capacity for virtual public comment. The district opened a e-public comment period for public and stakeholders to provide written comments in advance of today's meeting, and we did not have any e-comment. Those who are here in person may comment by filling out a card available at the welcome desk and handing it to staff. And board members, I'm going to ask that you make sure your microphone is on, and you please speak into the mic so the attendees can hear you. As a courtesy to others who wish to speak, members of the public are asked to comment only once on a topic. Vice Chair Wagner, Mr. Martinez, thanks for having us in your neck of the woods, and we're glad to be here in Miami. I'd like to thank you all for traveling here. Really want to thank Miami-Dade County for allowing us to be in their commission chambers today. This is an incredible facility. Thank you very much. And I also want to congratulate Mr. Butler and Mr. Martinez on being confirmed by the Florida Senate. Congratulations, gentlemen. We have some very special guests in attendance, and first we're going to start out with our Mayor, Daniela Levine Cava.
Oh, it's on. Good morning. Welcome to Miami-Dade County, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and all the great members of your board. And I'm especially pleased to see your Director, CEO, sitting in my chair. So happy to share it with you, Mr. Bartlett. Well, we were together last night with many of you with a little more informal hospitality, but I did want to be sure you know we're so delighted with our partnership, and it's been a blessing, truly, for us in Miami-Dade County to work so closely as we have done. I've been in elected office going on 10 years. I started as a county commissioner in District 8 in the southern end. I got right away a tour of all of the assets, all the facilities, and have been a partner and an advocate ever since. And particularly in the last few years, we've enjoyed so many groundbreakings, so many important milestones in our joint work to protect our precious water and our special resource. So it's a great partnership. We're going to continue to tackle some major issues that we do have. We know we have challenges, but we are equal to them. And I know that the members of this board are incredibly dedicated water warriors, and we will work as water warriors together. Clearly, you know that resilience is one of our top priorities. We can't do it alone. We have to work collaboratively. And also, it was mentioned, we're working with our Army Corps, which loves us, especially here in South Florida. We have the most projects of any place in the country that are supported by our Army Corps, so we're very grateful for that partnership. And there are 3 major flood resiliency critical infrastructure projects that are nearing construction. So we were talking a little bit about when we will be there for those openings, and really look forward, because they're not just wonderful things for our environment, they're wonderful things for our economy, and truly speak to the future of this place. So we have nearly 1 million residents that will be affected directly by these projects. Of course, almost 3 million here in Miami-Dade County. And so I want to thank everyone for working together. It's not just you and the Corps. We have many departments in the county that are working collaboratively to support this effort. We're also working on lands negotiations, and we're making great progress, and we do need to continue that, because if we don't have the land, we cannot protect the water. So we are completing, moving forward, I guess, on the Central and Southern Florida Flood Resiliency Study in partnership with the Army Corps. And all of this is key to ensuring that our canals and water control systems can handle the increasing risks from extreme rainfall and flooding across our county. Even a simple rain event here can overwhelm our systems quickly, as we just saw last week. So thank you. Thank you for your leadership. So to the board, to our executive director, and to all of you for your leadership and partnership, we stand committed to build a more resilient future here in South Florida. And welcome. Thank you again. for being.
Thank you very much for your hospitality. Mayor Diaz.
Good morning. And I'm also familiar in that seat a little bit. So I know pretty much most of you up there, and it's been a long road, and it's been a hard road at times. Director Bartlett, thank you for everything you've done along the way too, as all of you have. We've come a long way since the days where, you know, flooding was an issue out of control in our community. It was hard to decide the difference. There was lawsuits. It was a little out of control for a while. That's calmed down with this board and others prior, and we're in a different place today. And we're in a place of working together, and it's been very evident. And I think that's very important. From the mayor, that has doing a great job. I mean, she has the title of Water Warrior, and I have the title of the Flood Guru. So we work together very well. And in doing so, the most important thing is our environment, but it's also our urban areas. And that balance always needs to be maintained. And I think it's been maintained pretty good. And the seepage wall that recently we finalized at least a good portion of it. I know there's still a little bit more to go, and hopefully we'll find the funds to finish it. But you could tell the major difference. And I'm very proud of that, because it was something that we developed a long time ago. And it was a concept, and look at the reality today. I never thought they were going to bring a chainsaw of immense proportions to cut the ground. but it was real, and it did its job. So we go back quite a bit, but we're in a good place today, as I said earlier. And this is mostly a thank you, and thank you for what you've done, what you're doing, and what you will do. And I'll be there as long as the man on top allows me to be around and help in any way and continue what we started a long time ago. And with that, thank you on behalf of all of us, also in Miami-Dade County. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mayor Diaz. Is Mayor Mirbot here? I don't see him from Cutler Bay. Mayor Nickerson.
How you all doing? Be really, really quick. I just wanted to really say it's really important, you know, what we're seeing here. It's really important that you all can, you know, always do the work that you do. You know, as elected officials, one thing that we always have to do, we're always in a position where we have so many different priorities that we have to balance, right? I mean, you know, right now, my residents, they're so happy because, you know, we, for the first time in a long time, we have new traffic calming devices, right? And so that's a priority. You know, the sewer is a priority, flooding is a priority, water quality is a priority. There's so many different new parks. My residents are excited. I'm doing a brand new tot lot. I'm doing a brand new nature trail there. So there's so many different priorities. So we really do appreciate you all, that you all keep these type of issues at the forefront. Because if you guys didn't have the passion to fight every day for these type of items, then they would fall to the wayside. Not because we don't care just as passionately as you do, but because we're always getting calls from our residents and our neighbors about other things that they want fixed, that they want us to work on. So we have to do all of it at one time. And that's why government is always a representative government, because we represent what everybody needs. So you all are the key to us continuing to move forward in the right direction, so that when years go down the line, it's not like, oh, I remember when they started this initiative, but it fell apart. Because so many times, unfortunately, with government, we'll get excited about something. We'll get excited about a new initiative, and we'll have like 2 sessions, and then you never hear about it again. And then years you're like, what happened? Didn't we start an initiative called, yeah, I don't know whatever happened to that. But you guys keep our feet to the fire, and so we just want to say thank you for what you're doing, and however we can assist and help you guys out, you guys let us know. Okay, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nickerson. Is Councilmember George Birch here?
Good morning. Recently, some back surgery. I don't recommend it for anybody. Our main concern is money. You all have a lot of projects you're working on, the Little River Canal. Unfortunately, the C8 canal goes right through our village, and specifically, it goes right across our golf course. And because of that, a structure that has brought in around $2 million in a fairly small city with a small budget, we've been told that you're going to take 4 years to build this pumping station. We'll have no income during that period of time. And so with all things which you all already know, it's money. And any help that you all are able to give us in that direction would be sincerely appreciated. The golf course now is open, it's functioning. It netted around $2 million in '23. There's no reason, and with the equipment that you need to bring in to build your pumping station, you're basically going to shut it down. I don't know how many of you all play golf, but golfers don't want to play 14 holes and 17 holes. And more importantly, they won't rent the carts or pay the cart fees to do that. And my biggest concern, which is my second question, there was an article in our local paper here from in the Miami Herald stating that you had lost your funding for construction. And I hope that someone during your presentation today will address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Birch. Horacio Agre, Chairman of the Miami River Commission.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Horacio Stewart Aguirre. It's my privilege and pleasure to serve you and this community as the chairman of the Miami River Commission. Like yourselves, Miami River Commission is a state-created agency, and we work collaboratively. And you, Mr. Chairman, sit on our board, and thank you very much for your contribution to our efforts continuously. And when you're not present, you're always providing us your feedback and input, and we appreciate that immensely. I want to take you back to years and years ago when a hurricane would come to Miami, and our biggest concern was the wind. 75 miles an hour was a scary thought to us. I was growing up in the 1950s in this town, and that was an awesome thing to dread. And today, we don't dread the wind anymore. We don't worry about it at all. Our windows are rated at about 150 miles an hour, or our roofs are rated at about 170 miles an hour. We dread the water. The water is our biggest fear. It's our constant fear. Go back to September of 2017 when Hurricane Irma came. Hurricane Irma never made landfall in Dade County, yet it was the worst flooding event. I think you'll remember that, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner. It was the worst flooding event Dade County had ever had for a storm whose eye never touched Miami-Dade County. We need to focus on the flooding. It's the biggest threat to life, safety, and property values in Miami-Dade County. Please, let's make flooding our top priority. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let's see. Chairman Rodriguez, are you available? I don't think so. And any of our state representatives? I'm not seeing any of those. All right, we're going to move now to employee recognitions, and we have Mr. Wait, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Governing Board. My name is Spencer Crowley. I am the Miami-Dade County Commissioner and Chairman to the Florida Inland Navigation District. Just wanted to welcome you all to Miami. Congratulate the new Governing Board members. Happy to have you on the board and down here in Miami-Dade County. Since you're here, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Florida Inland Navigation District and what we do. Like your district, we are a local sponsor to a congressionally authorized project. We partner with the Army Corps of Engineers to maintain the Intracoastal Waterway through the state of Florida. Our district is partially coterminous with yours. We run from Miami-Dade County up to St. Lucie County in South Florida, and then from Brevard up to Nassau County through St. John's River Water Management District. Maintaining the navigability of our intracoastal is extremely important for the marine industry, which is in turn very important for our state's economy. And so we take our job very seriously. We go to Congress every year to make sure that the federal government is living up to their obligation to fund the project, and we're maintaining that project with the Corps very well. In addition to our core mission of dredging, we also have a grant program. And so we provide every year our local counties with grant funding for waterfront improvement projects. Here locally in Miami-Dade County, we do a lot of work on public marinas, public boat ramps. Interestingly enough, last night we were talking to some of your staff about seawalls. And one of the eligible projects for our grant program and grant funding is shoreline stabilization, which can include not only new seawalls, but elevating seawalls so that they're better able to deal with flooding and storm surge. So just wanted to make sure you all were aware that we're here. I know your local governing board members know how to find me, and look forward to partnering with you. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez.
Yes, I want to just formally welcome all of my fellow board members and those people in the audience. Welcome to Miami-Dade County. Other than the traffic, we hope that you really enjoy everything else that we have to offer. I really want to thank all the elected officials that are here today. The work that we have done, and those of us that represent Dade County and have advocated for, we have done it thanks to your support. All of you that are here, Pepe Diaz, who's here and represents Sweetwater, and Sweetwater obviously has its challenges, but we've worked closely with him over the years, and we will continue to work with him. And so Dade County is in a good place, and we are especially in a good place these days because of that woman sitting in the front seat, our Mayor Daniela Levin Cava. It's not too often, and I'm a lifelong Dade Countyan, it's not too often that we can gloat about our selected leaders. We can gloat about Daniela today, and for the past 6 years. She's a professional, she's tough, she's kind, and she represents all of us so well. And I'm so proud of her. So thank you to all of you that are here.
Thanks, Mr. Martinez. Vice Chair Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always great to do the Water Management District road shows to our different locations and get outside West Palm Beach from time to time, but it's particularly great to do it in your hometown and to see so many familiar faces that I think we see on a routine basis here living in the county that you guys may not see all the time, but who care about this community and who care about what we're doing. A long history with Pepe Diaz, who I love. He knows he is going to open the line to me anytime he needs it. And, we have worked through You know, the water management comes with its fair share of issues, and it's important that we all have open lines to each other and are able to talk frankly about what's going on, and frankly to talk quickly about what's going on, because you know, when we get incidents here from the weather one way or another, they happen quickly, and residents are disrupted. Businesses, but people's homes, and it's important to have open lines of communication. It's great to see friendly faces here. Mayor Omar Nickerson, who I've met before, is doing a great job with the village of El Portal. I think we met at the launch of the Cavista property, which is an amazing new multifamily property in your area. El Portal has been, you know, just absolutely doing wonderful things. It's good to see you here. And of course, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, who's been just absolutely great and a good, friendly face, but also a partner in working with us, I think. And it's good to see Commissioner from Miami Shores here, he's a councilman or commissioner? Okay, former mayor. It's great to see you. And Miami Shores is you know, Miami Shores is a historic community, but it's doing wonderful now. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. I'd be happy to speak to you about you know, your issues, and happy to discuss those things. You know, it's great to welcome people to Miami, but Miami's not just about welcoming people today. I mean, we welcome people from all over the world to Miami-Dade County every single day. I think more and more over the last 5 years, you know, obviously since COVID, but Miami's been and is now a truly a global city, not just in its visitors and tourism, but in its business. You know, I like to tell people you can do billion-dollar deals here during the week and then be on the water enjoying yourself on the weekend, and it's rare to find a global city like Miami around the world where you can do these types of business and have these types of tourism, but also enjoy the environment. A lot of these other cities have just not done well being a steward of the environment, and Miami may be one of the only, if not the only city where you can truly enjoy the water as much as you can enjoy and be here for business and do global type deals. And it's a very, very unique situation. I think it's a situation that we're fortunate to have. And now we've got leaders in place at the local, state, federal level who are all working in tandem with each other, including our tribal partners and environmental stakeholders and our business stakeholders. It's a unique situation, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you over the years, and hopefully we can continue the momentum for Miami-Dade County, and we'll be in a unique spot to point not only to what we can do in the boardroom, but also what we can do on the water here. So it's a great spot to be. I'm very honored to be up here and be working with all of you. So thank you.
A few words, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bergeron.
Yeah, I really want to thank all the elected officials. You know, our family has been in Florida for 8 generations, and we love this state. And I just want to compliment all of you for your service to everyone here in South Florida. We have a big journey on our hands, and it's all about we. My fellow board members hear me say that all the time, to make sure that into the future we have a quality of life and jobs and economical growth. It's a balance. And when you look at Florida, we live on a peninsula. And without the Everglades, that watershed, we'd have saltwater intrusion. We would not replenish the aquifer for our drinking water, the most important resource on the planet. So as we go forward here, a lot of people think we're just saving the wildlife and God's landscaping. We're actually saving ourselves and a quality of life for future generations. And the Everglades being the largest environmental restoration ever attempted in the history of the world. And it's so important that we achieve that. And I've always said, and my fellow board members have heard me say this, if we can send someone to the moon in a rocket ship, we ought to be able to save our planet for future generations. I want to thank the mayor in particular. I see you at every event with all the Everglades Coalition, and thank you for understanding and being a part of making sure future generations have a quality of life in Florida. Also want to thank Pepe Diaz. Me and Pepe's been together for a long time. I remember bringing him on a python hunt, and I told him, be careful when you get off the airboat, there's a gator hole beside my boat. Well, he fell right in it. And I don't know who was scared, the alligator or him. But we did get a python. And but thank all of you. It's an honor to be here. You know, I grew up in the little town of Davie with 500 people back in the 1940s. Kind of telling my age here a little bit. And I've seen Florida grow. And the important thing is to understand that as we grow, that we all work together to achieve a quality of life. We are the fishing capital of the world. We're the boating capital of the world. The Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, Florida Bay, Biscayne Bay, the 10,000 islands. How blessed are we to have these natural resources and at the same time have the ability to have the American dream, an affordable home, and to live in this beautiful state for many generations to come. So thank all of you and all of our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bertrand. I'd like to recognize Mayor Jerome Charles from Miami Shores. I know you don't want to speak, but I just want to acknowledge you're here. Thanks very much for being here. And thank you all so much for your hospitality. We're now going to move to employee recognitions, and if you all could join me down front with Drew.
Okay, very good. Good to see you, man.
Thank you, Joe. We should take off now.
Oh, I understand.
We got eyes and ears here.
Thank you for hosting us. And we're very grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Yes. I mean, they extol things here on the hospitality.
Drew.
Huh? We're all gonna jump in with Pepe?
Come on.
All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Glad that's happening. All right, we ready, Mr. Chair? Okay, so every month we recognize employees. We have an Employee of the Month and we have a Team of the Month at the South Florida Water Management District. So we're going to do those really quick. And we got Charlie, if you could hang around, I got something for you to do, and then I'll get into my Executive Director's report. So our March 2025 Employee of the Month is Bill Eldridge, Crew Chief of the Miami Field Station. So Bill has been at the Miami Field Station. He's been working for us for 38 years. He's a crew chief over vegetation management. And in Miami-Dade, it's an urban area. And one of the problems we have is we have a debris issue in some of the canals in Miami-Dade, particularly 4 of them. And that, it's all kinds of debris. It's vegetation, it's trash, it's tires, it's all kinds of things. And it became a real problem. And Bill stepped up and came up with a plan to get it out. It's an eyesore, it's not good for Biscayne Bay. And it was Bill that took the initiative to say, hey, we can get this out of here. And he put together a plan, routine visits, pulling it out, weighing it, putting it in a dump truck, taking it away. He's been doing this for a while. It's been working very well. Bill's worked weekends, holidays, and even on his birthday to keep these canals free of debris. And just so you know how much he's dealing with, so last year alone, he removed 345 tons of debris from these canals. That's 690,000 pounds, and as a conversion, that's 4,600 drews. Lot of weight there. We could all dream of a world with 4,600 drews, but that's how much weight he pulled out of these canals. And really, quite frankly, that keeps it off our structures and it keeps it out of Biscayne Bay, right? We didn't put it in the canals, but it's there, but we pull it out before it gets to Biscayne Bay. And Bill is a big part of that effort. The residents who live around these areas really appreciate it, and they'll go out and thank him. And so it's a wonderful work he does, and that is why he is our May 2025 Employee of the Month. Congratulations, Bill. Come around and Jennifer will give you your certificate. Yeah. All right. Our May 2025 Team of the Month is the S331 Area Gateway Panel Upgrade Team, and that consists of Eduardo Tovar Cadenas, Kevin Cope, Irina Durant, Pablo Escobar, Alejandro Gamboa, Ramon Garza, Saul Gavidia, Jason Lutz, David Milian, Dragomir Mitev, Stephen Nguyen, Fidel Polo, Diego Valenzuela Ramirez, and Leslie Richards. So, what is an S331 Area Gateway Panel Upgrade Team? So basically, Homestead relies very heavily on flood control, and there are 4 structures and pump stations out in the Homestead area that needed their panels, electronics, all their gears around it, the electronic gears, upgraded because they get aged, they get corroded, all kinds of things go wrong, and so the whole upgrade with security and all the new panels needed to be done for these 4 structures and pump stations. And so normally we go to the original equipment vendor and say, how much would it cost to get this done? And that manufacturer came back with, well, it's going to take 14 months and $700,000, but we won't be able to get around to it for 9 months. And it's like, wait a second, we got rainy seasons coming. And so this team looked at that, looked at each other, looked at that remote and said, we can do better than this, guys. And so they did. So they took the surveys, they went out and inspected all of them, made sure they knew what needed to happen, and then they designed the fix, got the materials purchased, got the programming and configuration done for all these electronics. They did the shop testing, the installation, and they commissioned the phases for all of these 4 structures, for all the electronics in these 4 structures. And they got the job done before this wet season. In fact, it didn't take 14 months, it took only 7 months for them to get this done. And in fact, it didn't cost $700,000, it cost $200,000. These guys saved us time, money, and we are ready for this rainy season, and I'm very proud to name them the May 2025 Team of the Month. Okay. Right, Jens. All right, all of y'all can leave except for this guy. All right. Yeah, come on up here, Charlie. I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay. We had to make sure we had the item in question here. So, Chauncey mentioned, it is, we are celebrating Reuse Week during May 18th to 24th. And all the purple that we're wearing today has to do with the fact that the pipes in the ground, if you're driving along the road and you see purple pipes stacked on the side, that is because those pipes are going to use water twice. So they basically, you pull water, you use it, and we really promote using that water twice. So this is Water Reuse Week. Reuse the water so you're not having to pull double the amount out of the ground. And so every month, there's a week in every May where we celebrate reuse to bring awareness to it. And in 2009, Governing Board member Patrick Rooney brought out a purple jacket and put it on to the surprise of everybody, not only making an incredible fashion statement, but sparking a conversation about reuse wherever you wear it. And that is exactly what's been happening since. Every year in May, we pass the purple jacket to a new board member. And this year, since we're down here in Miami-Dade County, guess who we're going to pass it to? Charlie Martinez. So let's put this jacket on, Charlie.
There you go, looking good, my man, looking good. That's your color now, that's your color right there.
Feeling good right there.
Thanks.
We do a photo together.
Perfect fit. What did it say? Brings out your eyes, man, brings out your eyes.
That's not the one I wore. Mine was a little smaller, but the huge one we framed.
All right, Mr. Chair. So whenever we go on the road, I'll start my executive director's report with basically a presentation on the things that are happening in the area that we're visiting. And so this time I'd like to present what's going on in Miami-Dade County. So all right, so just a little background. So the Central and South Florida Flood Control System was built and this district was formed in 1949 as the local sponsor to build this flood control system. which at the time served a population of about 1 million people, and it was basically built out in the 1950s and 60s to provide flood control for Miami-Dade County. At the moment, it has about 2,100 miles of canals, and a lot of those miles are in Miami-Dade County providing flood control. And then in 1972, we changed our name from the Central and Southern Florida Flood Control District to the South Florida Water Management District, where we took on permitting responsibilities and water supply planning responsibilities. Our mission of flood control and water supply never left with management of the flood control system, but now it's changed a lot down here, and we have a lot more municipalities. We're up to 9.4 million people in the Water Management District, but that district provides about 50% of our economy. Our current mission really was moved to the forefront under Governor DeSantis, which was restoring our water resources and ecosystems. And he announced that back when he first took his first term and again in his second term when he signed Achieving Even More Now for Florida's Environment Executive Order, dedicating millions and billions of dollars for Florida's environment. And we have taken that that charge with both hands, this board, the staff at the Water Management District, and ran with it, and been having a lot of success ever since. And what I want to do is cover some of the successes on this environmental mission down here in Miami-Dade County. First, Biscayne Bay restoration. Biscayne Bay, $64 billion enterprise down here in Miami-Dade County, and we are restoring wetlands adjacent to Biscayne Bay National Park. We have flood control canals that discharge directly into the bay, and the restoration is taking that direct discharge and moving it over and reestablishing wetlands and mango groves and that type of thing to make sure that we have a restored system in Biscayne Bay. We've been busy at it. The construction's ongoing down in Cutler in the L31. And we have actually Colonel Bowman here from the Army Corps of Engineers, who's very much a part of it. And the Army Corps is building the L31 flowway. We're building the Cutler wetlands. And between the two of us, we're going to get this job done for Biscayne Bay. It's very exciting. And thanks for coming, Colonel Bowman. I mentioned it's a $64 billion enterprise, Biscayne Bay, because we partnered with Miami-Dade County to do an economic study to see what it brings to the community of Miami-Dade County, and that was delivered a couple of years ago. $64 billion economic impact, 448,000 jobs, and that's the importance of the environmental restoration efforts for Biscayne Bay. Moving out west, there is US 41 goes across the Everglades between Water Conservation Area 3 and Everglades National Park. And it's been our mission to uncork Tamiami Trail to make sure we equalize the water levels from the north to the south and flow it through the park to Florida Bay. And we've finished building the bridges. DOT, the state, and the Corps have built almost 3.5 miles of bridges. And right now, if you're driving across US 41 through the Everglades and there's construction, that's Everglades restoration. That's raising Tamiami Trail. I'm happy to report that they've shifted traffic already for about 2,000 feet of that road work. And over the next year, this year, they will shift the rest of the traffic on the remainder of the road. But then they have to complete the revetments and other things to finish that construction. But the traffic will be shifted, which is kind of exciting. Once you get the water under the road, and then you need to get it through Everglades National Park and protect the communities to the east of Everglades National Park. And so this board and the Corps of Engineers took it upon ourselves to build an underground wall. When the water is in the park, it will seep underground into the communities on the east side of the park. And so that trencher dug a trench. We put soil cement down the middle of it. And if you see on this video, you see water in Everglades National Park, and you see dry land to the left of that video. That's a wall working. Keeping water in the park where you want it, keeping that wetland to wetland, and keeping the community to the west, to the east, dry. That's a major success we've had at the Water Management District in Miami-Dade. Once it's through that, going through the park, you also want to get it over to Taylor Slough, so we helped Everglades National Park uncork Old Ingram Highway by putting more culverts in so the water could flow through Old Ingram Highway. And then in the very western side of Miami-Dade County, we're putting 3 new culverts and a levee that keeps the water stacked up in 3A. Now it can flow a little bit to the west into Big Cypress and down into Lossman Slough and Florida Bay once we get those culverts done. They're all under construction right now. And the exciting part is all these efforts are working. So what you see on this graph on the right-hand figure, that's the Everglades, and that's water depth in the Everglades. Blue being water being there. And on the very left graphic, you can see a yellow stripe. That is Shark River Slough in Everglades National Park. You can see from 21 and earlier, it's dry at the end of the dry season. And you can see in the last 3 years, it's been wet at the end of the dry season. That's because we've done a lot of work to connect that ecosystem and bring that water to Florida Bay. And once it's in Florida Bay, you stabilize the salinity levels. And that's the graphic on the left. You can see the earlier times, 2021 and before, that if it's not blue, it's got too much salt in the water. You get fresh water to it, you balance that salinity level. And so that's what you're seeing. After we reconnected Shark River Slough, you see the salinity level balance. We're seeing the results of our environmental efforts in Miami-Dade County. But we also have recreational areas in Miami-Dade County, and we also have a brand new recreational guide. And if you don't have a recreational guide, there's some on the table out here, but it has the 3 recreational areas we have in Miami-Dade County where you can bike on levees, hike on trails, bird watch. We do have small game hunting, fishing, all types of recreational opportunities in Miami-Dade County. And as we're doing all the work on Tamiami Trail, one of the other things that happened is a boat ramp got taken away, but not for long because the Water Management District put a new boat ramp in so you could launch into 3B and see the Everglades for yourself. But another mission we had that you've heard about already this morning is flood control. And what you have in Miami-Dade County is changed conditions. The flood control system, as you can see on the left, was built between 1911 and 1970. And in that time frame, the county has built out. The lower right graphic is 1940, where you see a lot of unbuilt areas, to the current day where it is completely built out. And when you have canals doing flood control and you have a built-out environment, it runs off the roof down the street a lot faster than it did in those non-developed areas. And so that challenges our flood control system, so we need to work on it. The other challenge we have is the structures. Every structure in the right-hand pictures keeps the salt water from coming in. It also provides flood control. You open those structures and the water goes out. The problem is, at high tides in Miami-Dade County these days, you open the structure, the salt water comes in. It's not, gravity doesn't work like it used to because of sea level rise. In this video, it's an extreme circumstance with a king tide, but it's flowing over the top of the structure. That's salt water flowing over the top. And so we have to have a solution. Not only are these structures old because they were built in the 70s and need to be rebuilt, but we need to build a pump station. And how do you do that? You collaborate. You have to collaborate. You have to collaborate to make these things work. And that because you're putting a pump station in an area that you need it to work with the community in the area downstream. It needs to continue to provide flood control for upstream. And so it's something that you have to work very closely in Miami-Dade County with everyone to make happen. But it looks like this. So this is the S27 structure on the Little River. And you have a structure that is super old, not in great condition, that must be replaced and upgraded and hardened so it can survive storm surge. And then in addition to that, you need a pump station next to that structure so that you can move water when it's high tide instead of having to wait for low tide. That's a complete rebuild of that structure. That's a very expensive pump station that needs to be built to withstand storm surge and hurricanes as well. And so each one of these projects is about $200 million plus. And it's worth it because the upstream communities are billions and billions and billions of assets that need to be provided flood control. And so in working with this, we will be working with every community. We'll be working with Miami Shores to make sure that it works with Miami Shores financially and socially and culturally because the flood control is important. And so we'll need to be able to work through these issues. So that's flood control, very important in Miami-Dade County. But just looking at this year and what's going on and what we'll be able to accomplish in Miami-Dade County, with the Corps of Engineers and Colonel Bowman's team, we will finish the Biscayne Bay restoration projects. This year, we've completed the construction of all the features necessary to make sure that clean water enters the Everglades and will enter Miami-Dade County. Tamiami Trail will be raised and ready to equalize those water levels. The seepage wall will continue to function and provide flood control for the eastern communities and keep water in Everglades National Park. And hopefully we will be under construction with our resiliency projects on structures serving Miami-Dade County as well. A lot is going on in Miami-Dade County. We're very proud of it. We're very proud of the partnership. And we want to keep this going. We got momentum, and we're going to keep it going. So that's the slideshow portion, and now this kind of leads back into a report and an update on the legislative session that I wanted to get into. And basically, there was a bill that was related to water management districts and specifically related to the South Florida Water Management District as well. That was Senate Bill 7002. The legislative session concluded without the passage of that bill. That had a number of things that we were happy to do for the legislature as far as reporting and everything. The other important thing it had in it is a dedicated revenue stream for our flood control and operations that didn't pass, and that would have been a real benefit to us, but that didn't pass. So now, all of our attention is turned towards appropriations. And session was continued. It's supposed to, I don't know when it will end, but it's continued until, I think it's June 6th. And so between now and then, hopefully they'll conclude their business up there. But on the appropriations side, so the governor gave his budget request to the Senate and the House, to the legislature, and pretty much everything related to us in the budget request was honored, but there was two items that still have work to be done on them, and one of them is SERP, and one of them is the $150 million for upgrade and rehabilitation of our flood control system in implementation of Everglades projects. So on the SERP line, on the Senate side, so basically what happens is the House and the Senate have proposed offers. Nothing is finished yet. They're all in just a proposed type stage. On the Senate side, they do have fairly robust funding for SERP and for our flood control concerns, the upgrade and adaptation of our flood control system. They're working well. On the House side, the proposal right now, it's not a final thing, but the proposal has very low amounts for SERP. And so we're hoping that that will get straightened out, but it doesn't have anything for our flood control system, the adaptation or upgrade of that aging flood control system. And so at this point, there's a lot of discussions happening, and we'll have to keep monitoring that and keep you posted. I think it's safe to say that everybody understands the importance of SERP and flood control in South Florida. And so, we'll just have to make sure that we stay engaged in those conversations. Also, for Miami Shores, I'd like to mention, yes, we did lose some of the funding from the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grants, and that was for these three structures. It was $50 million for each structure. Total, they did leave the design fund, so we're still in design on these things, and we'll continue to work with you as we incorporate that design into your landscape. And then before we start construction, we'll make sure that we have everything integrated. And so we're still pursuing funding on the construction side that will also contemplate the funding needs to make sure that we can make this project happen in a way that is not disruptive to Miami Shores financially or socially. Okay, moving on. So Cape Coral, you might recall in the last board meeting, we passed a resolution. You gave me authority to issue a phase 4 water shortage order if that became necessary, and it did become necessary. So we did last Friday issue a phase 4 water restrictions, which basically said if you're using the Mid-Hawthorne aquifer, you cannot use your irrigation system for landscape irrigation. Landscape irrigation is a high demand when it is done of water resources. And And I've been getting water level readings, so the issue is you don't want the top of the aquifer level to get below the top of the aquifer because you could have compaction in the aquifer. It was getting closer. We needed to stop it from getting below the top of the aquifer because then you could lose the functionality of the aquifer. And so we put the restrictions in place and we've monitored, and it's only been a week, but we've seen stabilization. It's no longer going down. This aquifer level has come up a little bit, but we need to keep monitoring it because it's kind of bouncing right now. But it is having a positive effect. We will continue to, we're meeting, I think staff's meeting with the city of Cape Coral and Lee County tomorrow. They'll meet weekly, look at the conditions, make decisions. And I really want to thank Cape Coral and Lee County for seeing this issue coming and collaborating and coming up with a joint plan that we could implement and educate the public on before we execute it. And I want to thank our communication staff to making sure that no one was really surprised by this. I mean, we got to the most of the people in Cape Coral. They understood what was happening. They understood what was coming. And here we are. And it's working. But the other good thing is that in June, the city, Cape Coral, will start hooking up people to their system to get off of the mid-Hawthorne and start irrigating with other water. And we've seen that in other parts of Cape Coral work really well. And so we'll keep monitoring that, and hopefully we'll get out of this sticky situation. The other thing is that I would like to thank Dr. Wes Brooks, actually. He has been a partner with the South Florida Water Management District for many, many years, helping us with Everglades restoration and most recently with resiliency as the state's chief resiliency officer. But he is now taken a job in the assistant secretary, for the Office of Water in EPA, helping out with the leadership in EPA. And so we'll miss him. We will not lose his cell phone number because I know we're going to keep calling on him in his capacity at EPA. But thank you, Wes, for all your support over the years. And I'd also like to congratulate Dr. Carolina Moran for having a birthday today. Happy birthday, Carolina. And that's all I got for you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Executive Director Bartlett. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Thank you. Molly, are there any revisions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The agenda item background for consent agenda item number 21 was revised.
Thank you. I'm going to poll the board members now, and I'm going to ask you whether you have any abstentions. And I'll start to my right with Mr. Spotswood. Do you have any? If you can state that for the record. Thank you. Mr. Bergeron?
No.
Thank you. Vice Chair Wagner?
None.
I have none. Colonel Roman?
None.
Martinez?
None.
Mr. Butler?
None, sir.
Mr. Hurley?
None.
Thank you. No one has any? The Audit and Finance Committee report normally would be given at this time, but we're going to hold that off till next month's meeting when Mr. Steinley is available. He's the chairman of that committee. We're going to look at the approval of the minutes of the April 10th meeting. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Move to approve. I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call that question. Mr. Spotswood? Say yes.
Yes.
Or no. Yes. Mr. Bergeron? Vice Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Thanks. That passes unanimously. We'll move now to our general public comment. First comment period. If you're here to comment on a specific agenda item, we ask you hold your comment until we reach that item on our agenda. This comment period is for general comments not related to agenda items, and we appreciate everyone's help in running an efficient meeting. Public comment for consent agenda is item 14 on the agenda, and public comment for the discussion agenda is item number 26, and will be heard after that presentation. Molly, is there general public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear first from Francesca De Julio, followed by Scott Polowitz.
Good morning. My name is Francesca DiGiulio, and I'm an attorney with the Everglades Law Center. My colleague has submitted multiple comments to this board regarding the proposed Southland mining project, and today I'm here with an urgent, time-sensitive request for you all. For newer board members, the Southland project is a proposed 8,600-acre private rock mine directly adjacent to the EAA reservoir and the STA. And it would operate for about 30 to 45 years using blasting and other standard mining practices within 1,000 feet of critical Everglades restoration infrastructure, none of which was contemplated when the EAA reservoir and SDA project were designed and approved. Southland claims that after mining, the pits could be used for water storage, and the project has been submitted to the district as an unsolicited proposal under Chapter 255-065 Florida statutes and your 7-step process. Palm Beach County is also considering the project because under the county's comprehensive plan, mining in the EAA is prohibited unless the project is for agriculture, road building, or is claimed in this case a viable water resource initiative identified by this agency or by the Army Corps of Engineers. And although the district is only just beginning its review, the applicant has incorrectly represented that the district has already made this determination. County staff appears to have accepted that claim and is recommending approval to the Board of County Commissioners, and there is a hearing set for May 22nd on this issue. Clearly, the district has not approved this project. It has never been brought before this board for a vote or decision and is only now under evaluation. So here is why your engagement now is so critical. If Palm Beach County approves the mine on May 22nd, Southland could withdraw its proposal from the district entirely, and this agency could lose its opportunity to even review the project at all. So today we are respectfully asking this board, through Chair Goss, to send a letter directly to the Palm Beach County Commission clarifying your process and the timing for any future board review, and clearly stating that the Southland project has not been considered or approved by the governing board, and that while under evaluation, it has not been identified by the district as a viable water resource project. It's critical that you take action today to protect your ability to review this project and to protect the state's investment in the EAA reservoir and STA, because this board will not meet again before the county decision. These projects are far too important to allow for local government without this agency's expertise to make a decision that could impact the future of Everglades restoration. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Giulio. We'll hear next from Scott Polowitz, followed by Ryan Rossi.
Okay, there we go. Hi, good morning. My name is Scott Polowitz with Friends of Biscayne Bay, which is a local citizen support organization for the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserves. This year also is the 50th anniversary of the Biscayne Bay Cape Florida Aquatic Preserve, which is one of 2 aquatic preserves in Biscayne Bay. The last one, the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserve, celebrated its 50th anniversary last year. Thank you for holding this meeting in Miami and elevating our local issues facing us. You may have noticed in the news over the last few years, our beautiful Biscayne Bay is at a tipping point. We've seen years now of low dissolved oxygen levels leading to fish kills and seagrass die-offs, caused by summer rainy conditions that include nutrient pollution running into the bay from many sources. The ecosystem right now is stressed from runoff, extreme heat, and rapid salinity changes due to canal discharges. Biscayne Bay is Miami's blue heart. And I appreciate that so many mentioned that the recent study by Hazen and Sawyer, that you all helped to fund, by the way, found that Biscayne Bay is responsible for $64 billion of economic output from recreation, jobs, real estate, and port activities. Healthy mangrove, coral, seagrass, and coastal wetland habitats also help protect Miami from storm surge and flooding, and we are at ground zero here in Miami for those issues. The number one thing you can do to ensure Miami is more resilient to flooding impacts and water quality concerns is to keep BBCR on track and moving along. Any further delays in its realization could cost us seagrass and benthic communities in southern Biscayne Bay. Now that there's a recommended alternative for BBCR, it is vital that the district starts to buy land in this footprint now before it is lost to development. We would like to work with you to help ensure that this footprint is protected, because nothing is more important now for Biscayne Bay than getting the pollution load down. And for Miami residents, frequent flooding and insurance premiums are top concerns. So we need to ensure that the water has somewhere to go in a flooding event, as these projects will deliver. Specifically, it will take increased spatial extent of wetlands to hold, filter, and improve the residents' time of water before it reaches Biscayne Bay. The Bay cannot afford to wait any longer. Land costs will just continue to rise, and Biscayne Bay health will just continue to worsen if action is not taken now. We ask that you continue to make this vital estuary for so many people a priority, as you have with the Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands Project, before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polowitz. We'll hear next from Ryan Rossi, followed by Newton Cook.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Rossi, and I'm the director of the South Florida Water Coalition. I want to thank the previous gentleman for figuring out how to raise this podium. I want to first thank the board for the opportunity to comment, and also want to extend my own welcome to the newest members of the board, and look forward to seeing how you will help collaborate with many of us toward creating sustainable water policy going forward. I'm commenting today on an issue that I've been very outspoken about for nearly 7 years that I've been director, and that's our water supply. As I've said many times before, too many people often consider our water to be an infinite resource and operate under the assumption that it's always going to be there. In fact, it's quite the opposite, and I think the last several months of this dry time that we're in have really proven that reality. The next thing I'll say seems pretty basic. If it doesn't rain, then there's less water, and it doesn't get any clearer than that. For us here in South Florida, it hasn't been raining as much as we certainly would like, and we've seen conditions creep pretty steadily from moderate to severe to extreme drought conditions, which to a large measure is covering the lower half of the state and certainly becoming an issue for the 7 million residents that care a great deal about how it's beginning to impact them. In fact, I just saw a recent report that showed that it hasn't really been this bad since 2011. But here's the thing. I don't think that we can fully escape the fact that part of the supply concerns that many have are due to some of the new water management policies that have been implemented over the last several years. Yes, it's true that droughts will happen naturally, that weather is cyclical to some degree. However, ensuring that users have the water that they need in these drier times is also somewhat preventable, and that's what has been a concern to me for a long time. I know we're in Miami, but I'm going to bring Palm Beach County into the discussion, but consider Lake Okeechobee, which serves as the backup water supply resource for the city of West Palm Beach. You know, the Corps has implemented a new and different management strategy. The water was released during the winter, and now conditions are drier than we anticipated, which are driving the lake even lower as of today, and I understand there's some ecological benefit to that, but it is putting users in that area in a position to hope that we get the rain that we need to start reversing what's happening. What if we don't get the rain that we need? It's not an unusual question to keep asking. It's not an unusual question for the people of West Palm Beach to ask, and I think that they should be asking it. Finally, our local utilities work hard to ensure that users have the water the residents need, and we need to make sure that they worry less so that residents also worry less. Because right now, people are worried about their supply. It's as simple as that. So I hope that we can continue to make protecting our water supply a discussion that's both relevant in the short and long term. Our residents, our communities, and certainly our environment depend on us to make this a priority. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll hear next from Newton Cook, followed by Matt DePaulis.
Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers of Florida. I noticed Drew's comment. In 1947, there was about 2.5 million people in the whole state, about 1 million of them in where the district is today. After the flood, all the plumbing that we deal with today was planned and designed and built. It was built for a state with 2 million people, and then you wonder why we have so much problems today trying to fix it. I want to speak to the lake as usual. Colonel Hoffman, thank you very much for starting the ball rolling by not having a 16-foot lake in January. Thanks to Mother Nature for doing the really heavy lifting and getting the lake down to 11 feet just before the wet season, so hopefully we'll have a slow rise and the habitat of the lake can recover. That's the level it's in today, recover. The lake was in horrible shape, has a long way to go, no vegetation left, SAV, the important vegetation. And what's happening today will help bring it back and get the lake back to doing what it's supposed to do, and that is to be the heart of the Everglades. And at 16 feet going into January, it is a disaster for the Everglades. However, I want to speak to the spraying. The excess spraying on the lake is just building up the more muck in the bottom. And it's difficult because we have a lot of exotics in that lake that need to be removed, even sprayed. But we need to keep it to a minimum. And low water is very helpful to getting rid of the exotics out of the lake. We have a problem in the district with the spraying. Lake Toho is being sprayed out as I stand here. I mean, here we have a lake that had great SAV coverage, had great wildlife, including the ducks and the fish. And this district went along with the FWC and is dropping several $1 million to kill the habitat. We watched it be done in Apopka. And what do we have? A big fish kill. Why are we making Disneylands out of our lakes? We are in a semi-tropical environment. Lakes are supposed to be covered with vegetation. If you read the Tequesta files and the people that came down in the 1840s and 50s down to Kissimmee, into Lake O and across it, every other paragraph says something about the vegetation being so thick we could only make 1 mile today. That's the way Florida was. It was not a Disneyland for $50,000 bass boats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll hear next from Matt DePaulis, followed by Carlos Gutierrez.
Morning, Governing Board. Matt DePaulis for the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. I have a really simple ask for you today. We need more water on the West Coast. We are really feeling it in our estuary right now. We've been supportive of lake recovery operations, understanding that that's going to be great for the health of the lake, getting that submerged aquatic vegetation back. But now here we are at the end of the dry season, and we've just been seeing the amount of water that we've been getting down into our estuary decreasing week after week after week. We're looking at salinities increasing to intolerable numbers. At the mouth of the estuary right now, the Shell Point station that we're monitoring is 33 PSU. The range that oysters can really be successful in ends at about 25. And we haven't seen 25 PSU at Shell Point since April 25th. This is right in the middle of oyster spawning season, so this is one of the most precarious times for oyster spawning for the health of our estuary, not just right now, but into the subsequent generations of oysters as well. And as we know, they're one of the keystone species that is the driver for the health of our estuary. It drives tourism to our beaches, fishers coming down, spending money, driving our economy as well. So this is really a life or death situation. We're also watching salinities tick up in the upper estuary. The Beautiful Island station has raised about 2 or 3 PSU over the last week. So we would ask that we have recommendations coming from this body that ask for more water. We've been seeing at the same time where us and fellow stakeholders have been asking for an increase in the amount of water coming out of Lake Okeechobee. The recommendations coming from the district have been decreasing. And on top of that, the actual realized conditions on the ground are not reflective of even the recommendations that are coming from the district. We've seen that the district has lowered its recommendation to 500 CFS coming from S79, and we have not been anywhere close to hitting that at the S79 lock and dam structure since last Saturday when they went down to that continual 500 CFS. Previous to that, it was a 650 pulse schedule, but the pulses were woefully absent from what they should have been. There were days where we were supposed to be getting 800 CFS, and we were looking at numbers in the 100s. 132 on a day you're supposed to be getting 800 isn't going to be averaging out to that 650 without a lot of work. So if there is some discrepancy between the recommendation coming out of the district and what's able to be achieved, then we would hope that could be factored into the recommendations and give some buffer zone, because right now we're in this situation where we're on a razor's edge, and if we fall off of that, it's going to be years before we can recover. We're under the MFL for the estuary right now. We're about to start rainy season. The wet season starts in May 15th. It's still being projected from all the modeling and projecting I've been seeing to be a normal or above normal wet season. So if we can just get over that finish line, then we can actually protect this estuary. But right now, we're really at risk of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and I would hate to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePaulis. We'll hear next from Carlos Gutierrez.
Thank you, Board. Thank you for taking my name. My name is Carlos Gutierrez. I came here and I wrote a little card to speak. And God works in mysterious ways, because my calling has been the waterfowl, the guano, 10,000 islands in the Everglades here. Once we lose our fowl, we will not have guano, and guano is a perfect nourishment for our heartland to grow crops. We're in a swamp. What would happen if the Army Corps of Engineers removed the dike? Would every human here still want their car polished and so the seabirds don't excrement on their cars? Or the flurry like land farm that's happening here in South Miami-Dade? What I'm requesting and what I spoke on today is because I'm 100% RVer and I want to see America. And I see that some truck stops have a place to release my black water. They charge $10 at Pilot, but couldn't you guys go ahead and have black water so I can empty my black water tanks and maybe collect fresh water? Because I have 100 gallons and I don't want to travel 100 miles with 100 gallons of water. It's too heavy. So if I could get a place where I can, other than RV spot or something like this where I got to pay membership, or state park, most state parks don't provide water. Pilot, they don't, 7-Elevens, I can't get fresh water for my freshwater tanks. So if you can possibly have your staff look into putting discards for RVs, because you get a lot of RVers, and all this information, this black water is going to, if they dump it in somewhere else, I don't, $10,000 fine in California. Here, we have no infrastructure for RVers other than RV parks. Some state parks don't have a place to discharge their black water. Understanding that the Lake Okeechobee and the dikes were made during Eisenhower time, Army Corps of Engineers, I proposed this question. If the dike wasn't there, would the fowl come back up and the ants, I call humans, scurry and go to another state? And the love for money is the root to all is evil. If these commissioners are dying and killing our fowls, our birds, is it for money, or is it to protect our structure here? Florida Everglades acts like a radiator when the Caribbean plate, just south of Cuba, spreads a little bit and more steam comes up. Can you possibly look into what I'm saying and see what the benefits to bring the fowl and let it prosper again? Because right now, nobody wants seabird excrement on their cars. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional general public comment.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for your comments. We're going to go now to board comment, and I'll start with our friends from Miami-Dade. Vice Chairman, if you want.
Nope, I think I've already made my comments in the earlier section. I'm going to spare you the time and pass it on to my other board members.
Thanks, Mr. Martinez.
Ditto.
Mr. Bergeron has his hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Bergeron.
He said he was going to take my
I'll
time.
take Scott's time.
No chance.
Yeah, when you give a redneck cowboy alligator wrestler a microphone, it's very dangerous. But quite an honor to be here in Dade County, and what a beautiful city. And I hope as we move forward with Everglades restoration, we have a quality of life for everybody here in Dade County and South Florida. First, as always, I want to thank our staff, 1,500 strong. We have got the greatest staff that I've ever been associated with. That includes you, Drew, too, okay? Also want to welcome Robert and Tom. It'd be an honor to work with you and the board members. Would like to recognize my daughter in the audience, the next generation, the vice president of the Bergeron Everglades Foundation. I'm a proud dad. So Sawgrass to seagrass. The journey of water is the life of Florida. 200 miles from Boggy Creek below Orlando, all the way to Florida Bay. What an undertaking. And we're dealing with the largest environmental restoration in the history of the world ever attempted. And we're going to achieve that. And it takes a lot of communication with our federal partners. I want to recognize Colonel Bowman. Your leadership is impeccable. You've always got time to discuss solutions to make sure at the end of the day that we're truly restoring the Everglades as we proceed forward. I always talk about moving water south because that's all I hear from all the stakeholders. And we've been on this journey for 25 years. And I was very honored to be sitting at the table 25 years ago when we entered this partnership, federal and state. And we've come a long way. I'll be brief on the Tamiami Trail because Drew handled quite a bit of it. But I want to thank Drew and our staff. I want to thank U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Park Service, the Department of Interior, the U.S. Corps, South Florida Water Management, of course, the FWC, the DEP, and DOT. And we are we are removing and addressing any and all barriers that would not allow us to move water south beyond the Tamiami Trail. What is that? DOT now is taking on the Osceola Camp, which has construction work that has to be done. The Park Service is working with the concessionaires, the airboat tours on the south side that were granted money to elevate their docks and be ready for the L-29 to be raised to 9.5 feet to move water south, the 2.5 million acre feet that was planned 25 years ago. All of those partners are working very closely together. The traffic has been switched to the new 2 lanes eastbound, and the completion of the Tamiami Trail is probably March or June of next year. So we want to make sure that any obstacles and any barriers that we're addressing them, so when the road is completed, we can raise the L-29. I'm also asking DOT to grant us the ability to leave the L-29 after switching traffic to 8.5 year-round, which increases that water flow. Right now we're restricted to, I think it's 120 days with a grant of an additional 30 days. And that restriction was put there because to protect the old road. But now that the old road's going to be rebuilt, I think they will grant us that to move more water south. So we will keep you informed as we continue, because all I hear at every meeting from all the stakeholders, and they're right, is how do we move water south? The day we accomplish that, we're getting the benefit, and I remember Colonel Reynolds saying that we spent $1 billion on the Tamiami Trail. How do we get water beyond it? For the benefit of Everglades National Park. When you go back over the last 2 decades, what's occurred, we lost 50,000 acres of seagrass in 2015 from lack of water in Florida Bay. And at the same time, we drowned 5,500 animals north of the trail in the Central Everglades. So the biggest benefit that we will see for the last 25 years is when we have the 2.5 million acre feet as part of modified water delivery, 60% on the east side of Shark River Slough, as per our science, and 40% on the west side. you're going to see the biggest benefit that we've seen in 25 years. We're on a good path, and I'm so proud of our staff and all the stakeholders and all of our board members. And I look forward to giving you an update as we continue to go forward on that. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. I'm going to comment on Mr. Spotswood, and for our new members, I want you to know that because of Sunshine, we don't have the opportunity to ever talk to each other. So if you have anything you want to say to other governing board members, any discussion you want to have, now is the time to do it. And if you want to say thank you to someone, now is the time to do it. You can. The floor is yours for whatever you want, and you don't have to.
You'll have an opportunity next month also, so you don't have to get it
At
all
the end
in.
of the meeting, there's 2 times, right?
Well, I'll real quickly say thank you to everybody for the warm welcome, particularly to the staff, getting me up to speed and really making me feel part of the team quickly. So I appreciate that. Ron, I second your comment about the skill set and you know the impressive nature of the staff and the folks around this room. It's been fantastic. So thank you all for having me. Looking forward to working with y'all.
Thank you. Colonel Owen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, it's great to be in Miami. I got up early, drove across 41 through the Big Cypress and the Everglades, got to see the sunrise. And lo and behold, on the other side of 41, I come up in this oasis, this beautiful city. And I was so fortunate because traffic was traveling so slowly that I could appreciate every landmark as I was making my way to the government center. So I want to thank also Mayor Cava and Mayor Diaz for their warm welcome and hosting us here at Miami-Dade. Really appreciate that. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Tom Hurley and Mr. Robert Spotswood. Welcome to the board. It's great to have you on board. And congratulations to Mr. Butler and Mr. Martinez for Senate confirmation, and Charlie for that purple jacket. It looks good on you, but something happened between the last time and this time with the purple jacket. It got tailored, you know, and we're going to have to get it back to the way it was, because it looks just too darn good like it fits. Since our last meeting, I had a chance to go out with our field station guys to the manatee mitigation feature of the Picayune Strand Restoration Project. As you know, there's an item on our consent agenda today about getting a parcel of land so that we can use it for a staging area for a project that's about to start there, hopefully. The manatee mitigation feature is shoaling in, and so we're going to be using that land to launch a project to re-harden the banks and to prevent erosion in that area. The guys are doing a great job. They were repairing a tough boom and putting a steel cable through the area so that it would be hardened from the boaters that often drive faster than the no-wake zone and create some of that erosion problem. So I want to thank you for the visit. And also, Colonel Bowman, the heavy equipment team is doing a fabulous job out there at Picayune Strand. They're ahead of schedule. The dry weather is helping. And board members, I can just see it right over the finish line here coming soon. So we'll have a celebration when the time comes, but we're going to get it done. And I want to thank you, Colonel Bowman, and your entire team for the great work you're doing out there. I wanted to follow up on a couple of things. One, Drew, as far as I'm concerned, the joint efforts between you, Cape Coral, and Lee County have been outstanding in handling this water shortage, and my hat's off to all of you. I tell you that there's information out there to the public. The citizens know what's going on. It's been easily understood, and thank you for the great work on that, because I think you've been out in front of that message. One comment that one of the public commenters made about vegetation around our lakes, I think that's a misunderstood principle even around homeowner association lakes, right? Because the minute vegetation grows around the homeowner association stormwater pond, they're mowing it to the pond, right? And getting rid of all of the habitat around the edges of the lakes. I'm wondering, and I don't know who all the partners are on that, but I'm wondering if we could maybe re-energize some of that messaging so that we could emphasize the benefits of some of that vegetation that is healthy for the lakes and stormwater ponds and all of that. I don't know what that looks like, but I'll just throw that out there and ask Drew, you and your team, to maybe think about that and come up with that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Norma. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Robert, Tom, welcome aboard. Congratulations once again. Robert, your family, when they made it in, I understand why she may not have been here for your swearing in. 4 little beautiful youngins like that, I can't imagine trying to wrangle them early in the morning. But no, it's good to see them. And but congratulations to both of you. Look forward to working with y'all. You know, it hadn't been said yet, but we've all been through that learning, drinking from a fire hose. And there's going to be a lot coming at you. And there's a lot of moving parts. And it is ultimately, you'll find that the solutions lie somewhere in the middle of all these different mandates that we have. And but I think you're going to enjoy your time of service here, and it's something that hope you put the effort into it, effort into learning, and effort into representing. I will say I'm also happy. Not after 6.5 years, I'm no longer the new guy. So I'm glad I'm not sitting on the edge anymore. So this is a big day for me too. So I'm moving on in, closer to the middle here. But no, I do want to recognize, I saw Lorella and saw Mr. Curzio, Sam Curzio in the back. I don't know if we got any other former board members out there, but a couple of former board members here today. Sam here, of course, Sam and I share a lot of discussions, fellow farmer, and you know, listening to certainly you understand. Everybody knows the drought that we've been coming through. You know, John will show us, but you know, April was just absolutely dry, and you know, you were conserving and trying to get every bit of water you could to either grow your crop or grow your grass, and then almost immediately, it happens every year, summer rainy season hits, and well, you've got these canals that are up and trying to irrigate, and all of a sudden you're needing to remove water off a crop. And so John, your team, I have a lot of respect for what y'all have to do in that transition time. I know there's a lot of razor edge type maneuvers, but keep it up. Keep it up. We've got crops in the ground that need that flood protection as we transition here. And so whatever we can do, hopefully we're maximizing the use of our system. Finally, I saw Mr. Erskine come in, and LACO, we'll talk about it, but certainly we are at a lower type recovery level, and I know that as I came down around the west side of the lake, I saw where the marsh, some of those big burns had been done, and it looked good to see. Hopefully that's going to lead to some good habitat restoration, and it's just good maintenance. But and I know y'all are opening up some of those areas that have been difficult to get water into, some of those islands that have built up with wave action, and but hopefully everybody's dusting off their book and implementing low water strategies within the lake for the district. You know, whatever we can do to while we've got a low lake, we've got some projects. I encourage us to kind of get those things done, no matter how trivial they may be, because this won't last long. We've already seen the lakes already, I won't say turn a corner, but to stop that decline. That's my comments this month, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo Robert's just gratitude for the hospitality. The onboarding process is a bit like drinking from a fire hose, so I won't comment a great deal, but it is an honor to serve. My interaction with staff to date, I've been extremely impressed with the competence and the passion and engagement. And I appreciate everybody in this room for your engagement and your input, because somewhere in this room the right answer will emerge. So I appreciate that. So I'm the new guy, along with Robert, and looking forward to learning and getting my feet under me on this. But it's just, I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much. I'd like to thank Governor DeSantis for giving us 2 such great new board members, and I look forward to working with you. We, with the exception maybe of Ben a little bit, we all had the good fortune of starting together. So the fire hose we drank out of was, workshops and together, and a lot of question and answer. You guys have to do it individually. It's hard. It takes a lot of commitment, and I really appreciate your putting the time and energy into learning this whole incredible system that we have here, and all the great things this district does and the staff does. I want to thank the folks who sponsored the reception last night. That was really, really gorgeous out on the Rickenbacker Causeway. I haven't been out there, I think, since I was a kid, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and really nice event. So thanks for that. Drew mentioned Wes Brooks moving up to EPA, or over to whichever. We're really going to miss Wes. Wes, thanks for all your help. You're always there behind the scenes, and very, very helpful to the district, very, very helpful to the state of Florida. So we appreciate that and look forward to our continued relationship. I don't have a whole lot else to say. I think I've thanked people, so happy birthday, Carolina, and we'll move on to consent. If there's, let's see, anyone want to move any items to consent? Molly, is there any public comment on consent?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll begin with Newton Cook, followed by Matt DePaulis.
Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers of Florida. I'm speaking to item 20, and this is the KCOL 10-year management plan. Some years ago, that area, we had to do quite a bit of work because we had the KCOL, and then we had what is now the Kissimmee management area. And it came from the fact that the district was buying all the land around the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes, because the scheme at that time was to raise the entire system 2 feet, and that would stop all the water coming down south where we were balled up at the Tamiami Trail by the Cape Sable Seaside Sparrow. And that lasted until the first big rainstorm, and then the Corps decided that if it had been implemented, it had been 2 feet of water in downtown of every city along the edge of the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes, so that was abandoned. The new plan, of course, is good. We support it 100%. We have a little reservation because these plans continue to spray out the vegetation that naturally should be there if we weren't trying to make Disneylands out of these lakes. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse every year. We sprayed out, and not only this water management district, I mean, St. John's just sprayed out Apopka, and then they had a giant fish kill, and then they wonder why. And the cold front came along, and all the oxygen was out of the water. And everywhere they had an algae bloom, the fish died. This is not rocket science. You don't kill the natural vegetation, and even hydrilla, which comes in as an exotic. Today, the water in our lakes is double and triple the phosphorus content that was there before development. Eelgrass will not reduce the water down to the 10, 13 parts per billion that we have to have in this system to clean it and to have the natural habitats we had in the past. Unfortunately, it's an exotic that does clean it. It's hydrilla. And I'll tell you right now, if somebody made hydrilla the state flower, or SAV, it would be a miracle, because this water in this state, in our area, is dirty for one reason, and that is they clean out and kill all the SAV. And the only SAV that will clean the water with the biomass needed is hydrilla. And every time you spray 8,000 acres of hydrilla off of Toho, you're asking yourself for trouble. We've got to think about what Florida's lakes were working with before and what they're working with today. That's the planning we have to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll hear next from Matt DePaulis, followed by Caitlin Newcamp.
Mr. Chairman, Newton, I want to thank you for everything you do for our community. A man that's so dedicated to sustainable access and enjoyment, and sustainable is the key. And I'm so proud of our board and our staff that is allowing sustainable access and enjoyment to the public. We are the fishing capital of the world and the boating capital of the world, and for future generations to be able to fish and hunt and bird watch and photographers and bikers, I think it's wonderful that we have those policies to continue to let the citizens of this beautiful state have sustainable access and enjoyment into the future. And thank you, Newton, for your dedication for all of that.
We'll hear from Matt DePaulis.
Matt DePaulis, SCCF. I think Mr. Bergeron's comments are well taken. We're started as a land trust. We believe that the best way to protect a resource is to get out and enjoy it. So sustainable public access, what Newton's fighting for, is a key part of all of the restoration and conservation efforts. I am up here to comment on number 24, though, the C43 reservoir. I know it's not controversial. I just want to say how excited we are for this funding to keep going and for this project to be done. Once it's done, we won't be in the situation we're in our estuary right now. We'll have our own source of water. We'll be able to provide the water flow we need for those oysters and that tape grass. So I really look forward to standing up here a year from now telling you how great the numbers are despite us being in a drought, because we have this reservoir completed. And I want to commend Drew, too, for identifying through his leadership the stumbling blocks that the project was experiencing and really taking ownership of that project and keeping it on a timeline that is going to make sure that this is hopefully the last year we're dealing with these drought conditions. So full support for C43 and these other well-established research projects that we've put so much effort into, we as the collective, as you as the district, and all the other partners around. So I think that this is an excellent model for projects that we're carrying out now and going forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePaulis. We'll hear next from Caitlin Newcamp.
Good morning, Governing Board members. Warm welcome to the new Governing Board members. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. So I also wanted to just echo Matt's comments on item number 43, or 23. So we want to express our strong support for the C43 reservoir. We know this is a significant project that promises to play a pivotal role in improving water quality and restoring natural water flow across the region. The efforts put into moving this project forward are commendable, and we recognize the importance of this reservoir in reducing harmful discharges to the Caloosahatchee and providing storage capacity for excess water that can sustain estuary salinities into the dry season, which have been a longstanding concern for both the health of our estuaries and the communities that depend on them. And we definitely want to sincerely thank you for getting this project back on track. We believe that the C43 is a key piece of the puzzle in addressing water management challenges facing Southwest Florida in particular. Projects like these will help alleviate the water shortages, the issues that the Southwest is facing right now as we speak. And the lack of rainfall together with diminished freshwater inflows exacerbate the risk of harmful algal blooms in the estuaries and coastal waters. As the region continues to experience dry conditions, it's critical that sustainable water management solutions are prioritized to safeguard both natural resources and the long-term resilience of local communities. The reservoir will help to regulate water flow, ensuring the freshwater resources are available during these drier times. So as we celebrate the progress made on this reservoir, we're really looking forward to celebrating it over this summer. We also need to recognize that we do need more storage in this watershed to fully address the challenges of water management in Southwest Florida. We do have a 400,000 acre-feet goal, and this reservoir is about 170,000. So it will undoubtedly help alleviate some of the pressures on our waterways. But the size and scope of South Florida's water storage needs require continued commitment to expansion and enhancement of storage capacity throughout the region. So we just want to say we must continue to pursue comprehensive long-term strategies to protect our natural systems, which means looking beyond the C43 and exploring additional projects in the watershed. So we just urge the district to continue to moving forward, prioritizing additional storage, including public-private partnerships in this watershed. So we thank you for your commitment to this, and we look forward to working with you to achieve these goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment on the consent agenda.
Thank you all for your comments. Is there a motion to move consent?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call that question. I'll start with Mr. Spotswood.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron.
Yes.
Vice Chair.
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. Butler.
Yes.
Mr. Hurley.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. We'll move to discussion now. Mr. Elsner.
All right, good morning. Mark Elsner, Water Supply Bureau Chief at the district. And today I'm going to be providing an update on the fiscal year 2026 Alternative Water Supply Funding Program. You may recall in November, we were in front of you seeking input as we were about to launch the application process for the FY26 program. We've completed that application process, and I'll be providing an update on that. At the end of this presentation, I will be asking you to consider 2 resolutions. And typically when we start talking about alternative water supply, for some reason it starts raining, so I hope this presentation does the trick and flips the switch. Yeah. Okay, so for alternative water supply, as a reminder, alternative water supply includes in South Florida brackish water, development brackish water sources, reclaimed water, capturing excess ground or surface water and storing it in aquifer storage and recovery wells or reservoirs. And why is this important? Currently, our 9.4 million residents in Florida, with over 1 million tourists coming in, we use about 3 billion gallons a day of water. We're projecting our population over the next 20 years to increase to over 11 million, and we're going to need an additional 500 million gallons a day. That's 500 million gallons a day. Through our water supply plans, we've shown that we cannot just rely on our fresh traditional sources, and that water conservation and alternative water supply is really important to meet our future needs. All right, Governor DeSantis signed a new executive order which continues to include recurring funding for alternative water supply. Over the last 6 years, the governor and the legislature has recognized the importance of alternative water supplies in protecting our natural systems by allocating $310 million towards alternative water supply projects. This year, the tentative budget includes up to $60 million worth of funding for this program. And as we've discussed over the last 5 years, DEP requests that we put together a list of projects for consideration of funding. And I'll get into that in a minute. And that should be submitted by the end of May. All right, so our application, we released it on, I can't see that, December 2nd, and the application period ended in February. We had 2 Zoom educational meetings and included the links on our website for people to refer to as they were completing their application. We received 36 applications, 23 alternative water supply projects, and 13 water conservation projects. And the map on the right shows the location of those projects. The yellow ones are the alternative water supply projects, and the blue are the water conservation projects. These projects, these are either a standalone project, but many of them are a phase of a project. And the total cost of the overall project is $1.5 billion for the 36 applications we have. For this phase, For the next 2 years, the projected costs are about $330 million. And we have, with these 36 applications, requested funding to the tune of $115 million. Okay, well, as part of the DEP guidance memo, for this program, we're requested to provide a prioritized list by the end of May. There are several considerations that they've asked us to do as we're reviewing these applications. One, it has to provide regional benefits. How does this support an MFL water body? We should also consider other benefits to the project, to either water quality, flood protection, saltwater intrusion, and benefits to the environment. And we need to include a cost effectiveness. In addition to that, we have several district considerations that we have in place regarding this program. And for alternative water supply, it should be consistent with our regional water supply plans. It should reduce dependence on our traditional water sources, support ocean outfall legislation, which reduces the amount of water that's being discharged to the ocean, and put that to a beneficial purpose, and contributes to alternative water supply development in resource-limited areas, such as a restricted allocation area. For water conservation projects, we consider the water sources being conserved, how much water is being conserved, and the cost effectiveness of that. In addition, over the last several years, we've had governing board priorities, and some of those are, it must be in the South Florida Water Management District, or the district must receive benefits from that project. And that could be like in Orlando, where the 3 districts come together, where the project may be in St. John's, but we receive the benefits. We don't have any of those this year. It has to be an alternative water supply project or a water conservation project. And importantly, it has to be construction ready. And some people refer to it as shovel ready. This program for us will only cover construction costs, and costs for engineering, design, feasibility studies are not considered under this program. In addition, we consider the year-round irrigation ordinance status for local government projects, as well as the status of their water facilities work program. For transparency, I've included all the projects on the list in this presentation. We've reviewed that list with you, and you also have it as part of your governing board packet. It does include all the projects, and there have been projects that have been ineligible because it may not be an alternative water supply project. It may be too early in the process, and it's just a concept now and needs more development. But we also consider permit compliance and the status of adoption of year-round irrigation ordinances, as well as the water facilities work plan. And I'm just going to flip through this. Okay, I have 2 resolutions for you today. Resolution A is to approve this list and approve staff to forward this list to DEP for their consideration. And then the second resolution is allowing us to enter into agreements with those project sponsors if they're awarded funding. And Chair, that's the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Elser. Is there public comment? Sorry.
Yes,
Looking
Mr.
right.
Chairman. We will hear first from Caitlin Newcamp.
Thank you, Mark, for the presentation, and thank you, governing board members, again, for the opportunity to comment. Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. I did warn the two members that they'll be sick of seeing me come up here, so they know. But I just wanted to talk about a little aspect, one aspect about alternative water supply, that's the reuse of reclaimed water. We know that's a crucial tool in addressing the growing challenges of water scarcity. These technologies provide alternative sources for irrigation and other non-potable uses, and they are particularly important in regions like coastal South Florida, where the demand for water resources is incredibly high and superficial aquifers are vulnerable to overdrafting. At Audubon, we recognize the essential role these practices, along with water conservation, play in sustainable water management. However, it is important to also acknowledge the unintended consequences that can arise from their use, especially in terms of nutrient pollution. This remains a significant challenge for our ecosystems, particularly in sensitive areas like estuaries. While reclaimed water use helps reduce pressure on our freshwater supplies, it can, if not managed properly, contribute to the same nutrient-related problems we are trying to solve. Nutrients in the reclaimed water, especially nitrogen and phosphorus, can become problematic when they enter our waterways or historically nutrient-poor ecosystems like the Everglades. The advanced waste treatment standard is 1,000 parts per billion for phosphorus, which is much higher than the 10 parts per billion goal for the Everglades or the 40 parts per billion goal for Okeechobee. The nitrogen goal is 3,000 parts per billion, also much higher than water quality goals. When this water is used for irrigation, it can lead to nutrient overloading in the soil, which over time runs off into nearby water bodies. This runoff fuels harmful algal blooms, as you all know. To ensure that water reuse is truly sustainable and responsible practice, we must address the nutrient pollution issue directly, in addition to reducing demand for irrigation. That means requiring higher treatment reclaimed water to remove or significantly reduce nutrients before it's applied for irrigation or other uses. We need clear guidelines for using reclaimed water in both ag and urban landscapes, ensuring we aren't applying excessive nutrients to areas that are already nutrient-rich or vulnerable to runoff. In the end, we need a balanced approach, one that integrates water conservation, water reuse, and nutrient management. Audubon, Florida urges the South Florida Water Management District to prioritize the careful management of reclaimed water as we move toward a future where water reuse works in harmony with the protection of our environment. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment on this item.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Any governing board member have any question or comment on these resolutions? If not, could I have a motion?
I had a comment,
Please.
Mr. Chair, before the vote. The nutrients in the reuse water, this has come up before during some of our presentations, and I know DEP and Assistant Secretary Blaylock is in the audience. This came up especially when we were having our off-site meeting down in the Keys, and I raised or it could have been Sanibel, but I raised the issue about coastal communities in particular having a higher standard for nutrient levels for their reuse water. And I was wondering, I think DEP has made some progress on this. I don't know if Adam would like to take this opportunity to maybe explain that. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I know you've made some progress. You drove to join us, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay? So yeah, we have recognized in a lot of our basin management action plans, and particularly in areas where waters are impaired for nutrients, that reclaimed water, as much as we want to incentivize it on the water supply front, it does have nutrient impacts. And so we passed legislation, not this session, but the year before, House Bill 1557, which specifically requires us to make a determination if a utility or a wastewater treatment facility is using reclaimed water for irrigation, and there's a determination that that is causing or contributing to the impairment, that it will within 10 years, be upgraded to AWT to be able to address that issue directly. And we're currently in the process of updating all of our B maps and making those determinations. And some of our B maps, particularly the Caloosahatchee, has historically had that requirement in there, and some other ones have, but kind of making that a consistent statewide policy is something that we did in legislation, and we're now in the process of implementing. So any questions, I'm
Thank
happy
you,
to
Adam.
answer.
Thank you. And I hope that we'll continue to make progress, because that was a big step forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Someone make a motion?
Chair, we're going to need, we have two separate resolutions.
Got it.
Resolution A, I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve Resolution 2025-0511, which is, I think, is Resolution A. Is there further discussion on that? Hearing none, I'm going to call that question. Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And that passes unanimously.
Okay, I'll make a motion on resolution number 2025-0512.
Second?
Approve.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution B 2025-0512. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call that question. Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley? That passes unanimously as well. Mr. Elsner, thank you very much. We are going to break for lunch before technical reports. We'll be back at 1.
Do we know where
the Water and Ecological Conditions Report with Mr. Mitnick and Ms. Armstrong.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So while they're pulling up the presentation for everyone, you already heard it this morning. It's been dry. So we're towards the end of the wet season, end of the dry season, waiting for the wet season to start up. So when we look at back over the last several months, you can see it's been below average, all the red bars. We'll see how the month of May picks up. But for there on the left-hand side, looking at April, April is actually 16% of normal rainfall that we typically get during the month of May. So that makes it the least amount of rain that we have ever had during the month of month of April. So it's the lowest on record for April. Correct. Correct. So overall for the dry season wrapping around back until when it started in October of last year, we've had less than half of the amount of rain that we typically get during a dry season. So like I said, and like several of the commenters this morning also said, it's been dry. It's been a very dry season. Overall, the bottom red trace is this dry season, how it stacks up against all of the other dry seasons. So that's down in the 5th percentile of all the dry seasons that we've recorded to date. So it's just another indication of how abnormally dry it has been. But it was consistent with the forecast that we were receiving towards the end of the last wet season, where we were calling for a La Nina type condition. We knew it was going to be below average rainfall, but it's been on the below average side. So hopefully the wet season will start here shortly. It has not started. There are some areas of the district that got rain this past weekend. That was just from a frontal and a low system that was moving around that you'll see at the end of today's presentation as that system continues to move offshore of the east coast of the United States. Then that'll bring some additional rains come Monday. But more than likely, neither one of those two events will have signaled that the wet season has commenced. We're still looking for those other atmospheric conditions to start generating before district meteorologists, sign off on the wet season having begun. But system condition-wise, starting there in the upper right-hand corner of where the lake systems look up in the upper chain of lakes, you can see we're pretty much down to the summer pools in each one of the lakes, going from East Lake down to West Lake, and then also Lake Kissimmee. You can see Lake Kissimmee is well below its regulation schedule. It's going into what we call Zone B5 of the interim regulation schedule in between now or the previous schedule and headwaters revitalization. So those flows have been dropping down the river. Once we enter into that zone, we again cut flows down the river. So now flows coming out of Lake Kissimmee are on the order of 150 cubic feet per second. So they've been gradually reducing down, and that's indicative of the way the river system looks right now. So Cassandra, what does the floodplain look like?
Well, it's dry, as you said, it's dry, and it's drier than it was last month. You notice last month had a few places where there was still some standing water. Those are now gone. So we have very little water on the floodplain, but as you can see from 1 year ago, it's still very similar conditions. So this is not unusual for the Kissimmee River. One of the things that dictates how much is on the floodplain is discharge from S65A. Currently, we're at 160 CFS, which is half of the minimum flow that we normally get through there. Therefore, the stages in the river are also dropping, which is starting to be challenging for outboard motor boat navigation in through the river. However, the oxygen concentration within the waters that are in the river are in great shape. We're at 5.6 milligrams per liter, which is well above the threshold of 2, which is where below that it starts to become harmful for fish.
So I probably should have started off by welcoming everybody to the new water year. This is the month of May, so we flip over and we start a new water year. It runs from May around to April of the subsequent year, so we are now in water year 26. But typically during this month's presentation, I always look back and show how the last 2 or 3 water years have stacked up. So in looking at the large chart on the right there, you'll see in green the inflows to Lake Okeechobee over the last several water years. If you look at the difference between water year 23 and water year 25 that we just finished about 8 days ago, you'll see that difference is about 600,000 acre feet of water less came into Lake Okeechobee. So that represents about 1.5 feet on Lake Okeechobee less of inflows during this past year. What also should jump out at you on this chart is the small graph in the upper right corner of the map. That's the amount of rainfall that has occurred in the northern portion of the system. So essentially draw a line from Stewart to Fort Myers, that's the north, and everything to the south is obviously the southern portion of the system that I'll cover in a slide here in a couple minutes. But for the northern portion, we got about 9 inches less water than we have back in 2023. It's still slightly above the average for the water year, but it's still a lot less water over the last 2 years that we had been experiencing as inflows and direct rainfall to the northern watersheds coming into Lake Okeechobee. So that explains sort of the difference in the 1.5 feet less water that came into Lake Okeechobee itself. But looking at the 2 estuaries over on the Caloosahatchee, in total there's about 1.8 million acre feet flowed to the Caloosahatchee estuary this last year, with about a little more than 600,000 acre feet of that having originated back in Lake Okeechobee. On the east coast, about 351,000 acre feet came out of the C44 basin, and Lake Okeechobee contributed 164,000 acre feet to that total. Other inflows to the St. Lucie estuary were about 250,000 acre feet throughout the total year from C23-24 basins, and just a little bit more, over 120,000 acre feet to Fort Pierce through the C25 basin. So looking down at Lake Okeechobee, this is the typical graphic that we use that's informed by future climate conditions. So you can see all of those trend lines sort of bump down along the top of the water shortage management band. So as of this morning, the lake was at 11.09 feet NGVD. It's about 1/4 foot above the water shortage management band. It's been pretty much consistently tracking parallel to the water shortage management band over the last couple weeks. We're in that time of year where the water shortage management band is sloping down also to get down to its low point of 10.5 feet by June 1st. And then after June 1st, it starts rising up. So if you focus in on sort of the red trace, which is the 50th percentile, that's kind of what we look at. You have a 50% chance of being either above or below that line, essentially what it means. So pretty much, it just, like I said, tracks down, paralleling the water shortage management band until June. And then once the water shortage management band starts rising as we go through the wet season, there is a possibility of entering into the water shortage management band, depending on rainfall and depending on when that wet season and those rains start generating and start building within the system. But again, just to remind you that just because you cross the line, there is no automatic action that happens. It's still a conscious decision on how water is moved around the system. You heard some of the speakers earlier this morning talking about those allocations and prioritizing those allocations. For flows to the Caloosahatchee, our district recommendation has been that 500 cubic feet per second. The minimum flow and level for the Caloosahatchee estuary is 457 cubic feet per second, but it's not an instantaneous, it's not a daily number that you have to look at. I think one of the speakers earlier this morning talked about the daily flows have been below that number over the last couple days, and that is correct, but overall the MFL has a duration component to it as well. So we are not right now currently exceeding the minimum flow and level for the Caloosahatchee estuary. At the same time, we're also prioritizing other flows out of Lake Okeechobee. to the other portions of the system and trying to meet all of the competing demands that come on the lake. But looking at how we're doing for recovery operations, this is the graphic that the Corps of Engineers produces that they use to sort of project out in their forecast on the likelihood of achieving success. And right now, all indicators are that we would have achieved success in implementing recovery operations, meaning that we were below the 12 feet or below the 11.5 feet for the required number of days. So everything's looking good on that front to be able to regenerate some of those submerged aquatic vegetations in the Lake Okeechobee and rehabilitate the lake after having several years of high water events. But overall, for the 12-foot metric, we've got about 22 days now below 12 feet. For 11.5, we've only got 11 days below the 12 feet, and every day, obviously, that's going to keep on counting, with the two goals being 90 and 60. If you achieve either one of those, in other words, you could not be below 11.5 for 60, but if you were below for longer than 90 days, the 12 feet, then you're deemed to have been successful in those efforts. So that's kind of where we stand now, and as I've said a couple times here, we'll continue to watch for the onset of the wet season, try to manage the rise, and hopefully it doesn't come as one big deluge as it has a couple years ago, where we got a significant rain event in the month of June, where the lake just shot straight up. Hopefully we won't have that situation and be able to maintain the progress that we've made within Lake Okeechobee by implementing these types of operations.
With that, we'll take a look at the last month in the Lake Okeechobee. And with that, we've had steady declines in both the stage as well as what's come in and what has come out to the lake. The high ET, evapotranspiration, throughout most of April has been the largest amount of water leaving the lake. Over half of the water actually left through ET. And we have had a reduction in the amount over the past week or so. You can see in the graph on the right that the line actually goes up towards zero for the releases coming out of the lake. And for the recovery envelope, we are at the very bottom of the recovery envelope. I also want to point out that this graph is a couple of days old. It's from the 4th. And as of today, the lake is actually at 11.09, which is about almost a tenth of a foot a drop over just a couple of days. So we're seeing a lot of ET driving the lake release going down. But the intent here is to increase the ability of the SAV in order to be able to regrow and root and produce enough biomass that it can survive once the lake levels do start to go back up. And over the course of the winter, we want to make sure that we have enough SAV that can recruit again for the following year. And as John mentioned, these are the targets of 90 days above 12 and 60 days above 11.5, and we're well on our way to achieving those. And I also wanted to point out that we are having a lot of bird usage of the lake. So this picture was taken by Army Corps staff who were out flying around. These are ducks. Those little dots that you see in that picture are ducks' usage of the south end of the lake where it's been pretty dry and mudflat has been exposed. And they have been seeing a lot of this type of usage increasing over the past month or so on the lake. And also, we've got some updates on our wading birds, which are here. So the graph on the right shows our annual surveys, and the straight line or the solid line is the average, and then the gray shadowing is our what we call interquartile range, which means the 25th and the 75th quartiles of the data, and our red dots are the actual surveys from this year. And as you can see, we are well above for foraging for the wading birds. Now, they are primarily focused into Moonshine Bay, which is the area of the lake that still has a little bit of foraging area. So basically, they're concentrating in that general area, using what's remaining of the foraging area. And next, we'll move on to what's been going on with the precip and wind. Precipitation has been quite low. You can see the very bottom graph. There's little blue blocks, that's the rain. That's all we've had. We've only had 4 rain events over the past month. One of them being the largest was 0.2 inches, and that was on the 5th of May. So not very much rain on the lake at all. The wind has been out of the south and the east, primarily the east, which is pushing the water onto the west coast of the lake, and that's important, and you'll see that in just a second. And then lastly, the temperatures have been above 25 degrees Celsius for quite a few weeks now, and that's important for algal blooms. That's a threshold for microcystis to start to bloom. Water quality on the lake has actually improved over the last couple of months. So what you're looking at here is the top graph is chlorophyll A concentrations. The middle graph is dissolved inorganic nitrogen, which is the form of nitrogen that algae use when they want to grow. And then the bottom graph is turbidity. And the blue bar shows the current data. And what you can see with this graph is that in the near shore, the purple line, the chlorophyll A concentration has remained pretty low, but the dissolved inorganic nitrogen has dropped precipitously. And what that means is that the algae are actually photosynthesizing, they're doing all the work that they need to be doing, and they're sucking up the nitrogen, but they're not increasing in biomass, which is a good sign. Also, the turbidity in the lake, especially in the near shore, has declined, and that's part of the recovery operations to increase water clarity, to get that SAV to be able to grow. So while temperatures are above 25, the rest of the conditions for blooms have not set up in the lake, so we are not anticipating a bloom in the near future. And this is what the most current satellite imagery looks like. We've had some cloudy days, thank goodness. So the last usable imagery is from April 30th. You'll see there's a nice blob of green up in Fish Eating Bay, and that would indicate that there might be a bloom potential. However, the water in that area is very shallow, and it is highly likely that that is picking up a benthic signature and not necessarily a water column signature. So again, we're on the lake right now. There's not a lot of risk for algal bloom. And the last time we did a species check on the algae on the lake was mid-April. And we did find a few spots where the algal biomass concentration was above 40, mostly in the upper northeast area and also over at S77. We had concentrations above 40 micrograms per liter. But that was about it. There are some areas where it's between 20 and 40, and that pretty much lines up where the pixels on the satellite imagery picked up. And mostly they were of mixed community. There were 2 that were microcystis, but no toxins were detected. Now moving on to the estuaries and St. Lucie. We have had about 200 CFS flow coming into the estuary from the tidal basin. The lake releases to that estuary stopped on March 29th. The salinities have increased throughout the estuary, and you can see on the bottom 2 graphs, the teal represents a little bit of the higher salinities, and that has moved further into the 2 forks compared to the previous month. And you can see on the graph on the right, the salinities that are at the US 1 bridge. They have increased, but they are still within the optimal range for oysters. And here are the oysters. So it's been a big question recently, or how are the oysters doing? Because this is the period of time when we see spat recruitment. And FWRI was out in, for this one, they were out in early April to collect what we call them stringers. It's shells hanging off of a string into the water, and then the spat can settle on those shells. And FWR comes out and collects them and then takes them back and counts the number of spat that are on those shells. So the numbers that are reflected here actually reflect the recruitment from mid-March to early April. And they did not see any spat on this latest sampling. They actually are out in the estuary today, and were out there yesterday, so we're hoping to have some more current numbers shortly. But as of late March and early April, recruitment had not started in the St. Lucie. Moving over to the Caloosahatchee, total flows to the estuary were 413 CFS, with most of that coming from the lake. Lake releases have declined starting March 2nd, 29th, excuse me, to that estuary, and as a result, salinities have increased. You can see on the two graphics on the left that the thresholds of the different salinity categories have started to move upstream. And you can also see the average 7-day salinity in the map on the right. All of the salinities have started to climb up. However, Cape Coral is still in the optimum range for adult oysters. And the oysters in the Caloosahatchee, the top graph is for Iona Cove, and the bottom graph is for Bird Island. Iona Cove has not yet seen any recruitment. These data were collected April 18th, so they reflect late March and early April recruitment conditions. And you can see there is actually a bar at the bottom for 1.3 spat per shell for Bird Island. So recruitment has actually started in the Caloosahatchee. And this is normal for these conditions. Recruitment begins between March and May, so seeing them start at this point in time is well within normal range, as well as for the St. Lucie. It may seem like it's late, but it's actually quite normal that we haven't seen any recruitment begin. But this is critical time for that organism. Back to John.
So the story continues to play out when looking at the southern portion of the system. At the table on the left-hand side, second row there in blue, Lake Okeechobee outflows. Comparing last year versus 2023, there's about 900,000 acre feet more water left Lake Okeechobee than it did in 2023. So that's roughly about 2 feet of water more came out of Lake Okeechobee than it did in 2023. So if you put that together with the 1.5 feet less that flowed into Lake Okeechobee that we talked about earlier, then that pretty much explains the roughly 3+ feet difference between where the lake sits today and where it sat at this time back in 2023. So it's simple mass balance when looking at the lake, inflows and outflows. So despite the below average inflows, there was still a significant amount of water left Lake Okeechobee doled out. And that's in part one. You'll see in the next slide about all of the roughly 350,000 acre feet of lake water that was moved south down into the Everglades, but also the recognition of the drier conditions and the higher demands on the lake during dry times. Sorry. Then on the bottom bottom left corner, you can see the difference in the rainfall in the southern portion of the system. There, again, there's roughly 13 inches difference, being 13 inches less rainfall occurred in the southern portion of the system than it did in 2024, and roughly a 9-inch difference compared back to 2023. But overall, the very bottom table on the left, you can see district-wide how the different years stack up. So going from 2025 back to 2023, roughly 7 inches less water fell district-wide this last water year as compared to previous water years. So looking at the stormwater treatment areas, you can see over on the right-hand side of that graphic, we just started water year 26, so those numbers are starting to accumulate, continuing to move water down through the system as best we can, given the dry conditions, and making those allocations and those priorities with the various competing demands on the lake itself. but looking back at 2025, the STAs processed about 1.2 million acre feet in total, and again, about 350,000 acre feet having originated back in Lake Okeechobee, and that was water that we moved south from the lake through the STAs and to the Everglades.
Thank you. As John said, the STAs have taken about 1.2 million acre feet with 350,000 coming from the lake. There has been a lot of vegetation management activities in the STAs due to highly stressed vegetation conditions as well as construction. The water depths are at or above target in all STAs except for in STA 5-6 where the cells are mostly dry. These two bars reflect the cells, the flowways that actually have water in them, and those are near stage. The water is being delivered there through a temporary pump, but there is a 300 CFS pump that will be constructed for water to get there more consistently. I did want to mention that these graphs for the STAs and the ones to follow are all for the water year. So all of the data that you see presented here are going to reflect what the reporting for STAs will look like when QBEL begins, which starts this water year. And so you can see, I'm going to walk you through some of the math that goes into evaluating STA performance. So the graph on the top right is a summary of the flows that went into the STAs, the inflow concentrations, and then the outflow concentrations. And as you can see, STA 3-4 was at 17, which is below the 13 ppb threshold. And then STA 1 East and 1 West were just above it. The STA 5-6 is got a pretty high concentration, but if you'll notice, the inflow concentrations are also very high. However, we have the C139 that is coming online, which will provide some pre-treatment as we go forward, so that inflow concentration should come down, which will help with the outflow concentration. The other thing that I wanted to point out to you is STA 2 is also having relatively high outflow concentrations, and I'll walk you through that in the next couple of slides. So I wanted to show you how the math looks for each of the STAs. So these top graphs show the inflow dynamics. So the inflow concentration for the annual average is the solid line. The inflow concentration 28-day rolling average is the dotted line, and the orange is the flow coming in, and then the bottom graphs are for the outflow dynamics, the same. So the solid line is the annual average, the dotted line is the 28-day rolling average, and then the orange is the volume. So these two graphs are for STA 1 East and 1 West. And if you'll recall, we had a large rain event in June of 2024 that brought in high concentration water into all of the STAs. And so you can see how each of the STAs responded to that. These two STAs tend to get higher concentration in flow water anyway, and so the impact to them was not as great on their outflow. There was a small bump, but each one of them was able to maintain fairly low outflow TP concentrations, ending the year at 25 and 22. However, STA 2 did not fare quite so well, and so the inflow concentration was quite high. It was close to 300 parts per billion, and that was directly influenced the outflow concentration. And even though the monthly averages actually declined to below 19 starting in September, that annual average just never fully came down. And that is where we run into our mathematical challenge with the STAs. So even though performance ended at 16, the annual average that gets reported out is 39. So I just wanted to keep that math problem in your minds when we go forward with QBEL, that this is going to be our challenge. For STA 3.4, we didn't quite have the same scenario, and that's because 3.4 has A1 FEB, which did a lot of the pretreatment. So even though the flow that came into the STA was quite high, the concentration was fairly reasonable. And so 3.4 was able to process that, had great performance, and we ended the year below 19. And lastly, for STA 5.6, they had a lot of high concentration water come in, even though the flow was fairly low. And you can see that the outflow concentration responded in kind and was quite high. And then it started to come down, but then we basically stopped flowing to that during the dry season, and so there was no flow going through that STA to be able to bring the annual concentration, outflow concentration down. So again, a math problem where we weren't able to bring the average down because we weren't flowing enough to bring that average down, even though the concentration of the water that was in there was pretty good. STA 5.6, like I said, struggles from high inflow concentrations, but its performance on a percentage basis is actually really good. It's 78%, which is right in line with the other STAs. So just keeping in mind that when the C139 FEB comes online and we can get those inflow concentrations down, STA 5.6 will start to look a whole lot better in its performance. So now going through each of the flowways' current conditions, as you can see, we have still a lot of vegetation management going on in each of these STAs. We currently have zero lick capacity for either of these STAs. We have an offline in STA 1 East for leveling, and we have an upcoming construction project in STA 1 West. We also have migratory bird nesting in 1 West. The blackneck stilts have decided that cell 6 and cell 8 are a nice habitat for them, so we've had to reduce flow in those cells as well. But we are continuing to send water to facilitate the optimization and testing of expansion 2. Now, for the central flowway, I wanted to take a brief moment to respond to a comment from the last board meeting regarding maximum capacity that the STAs can take. So the baseline maximum capacity for lake regulatory releases to the STAs is 1,100 CFS daily flow rate, or about 2,200 acre-feet daily volume, which was included in the development of our LOSM modeling. The actual flow rate and volume of lake releases sent to the STAs vary depending upon actual conditions in the STA flowways and the regional system. District staff meet weekly to evaluate the conditions in each of the STA flowways and to determine lake release capacity in each flowway. Evaluation factors include vegetation management activities, construction activities, nesting by endangered and migratory bird species, and STA treatment performance. We take that into consideration, especially as we are approaching QBEL compliance, which again started May 1. So with that, starting in STA 3.4, it's not taking lake water at this time due to the amount of water that it has taken up to this point in time. It needs a break. It's got a high phosphorus loading rate, and so we need to bring that down so that it can begin to increase its performance again. And then STA 2 has a lake capacity of 200 CFS, with 100 each going to Flowway 1 and Flowway 2. And also a dredging project has started in Flowway 1 to remove buildup of silt in the inflow canal. And so lake water deliveries are beneficial for that dredging operation. Flowway 3 is offline for a SAV recovery drawdown, and rehydration will begin this month. And on to STA 5.6. It's mostly dry. It's got 100 CFS capacity going into Flowway 1 using the temporary pump. And The rest of the STA remains fairly dry, but that water that is coming into the top of it is allowing for some of the cells to remain hydrated for flowway 2 and flowway 3. To John?
All right, so if the conversation about Lake Okeechobee and how to prioritize and allocate those water supplies isn't challenging enough, this is the part of the system where it really gets fun. Essentially take each one of the conservation areas 1, 2, and 3. They serve from a water supply perspective their respective service areas 1, 2, and 3. Essentially that's Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade counties. So starting in the upper right-hand side there for Conservation Area 1, you can see it's just slightly below its regulation schedule for this time of year. It's sitting in a really good place. There's not a whole lot of water supply demands on Area 1, primarily because we are feeding water to that area through the C51 canal, which if we were up in our building would be right outside the window, but it's a ways north of where we are today. So Area 1 and Service Area 1, they're looking pretty good from a groundwater perspective in that water supply condition. So when we drop down into Conservation Area 2 and Service Area 2, which is Broward County, you can see that Conservation Area 2 is well below its floor elevation, the floor being that sort of brownish tan line on the graphic. And you want to cue in on the green trace, which is what calls for the official regulation schedule and its level for this time of year. So a couple weeks ago, we obviously knew and had the forecast with the drier conditions that Area 2 would go below its floor. So there's a concept in the regulation schedule where any drop of water that comes out of Area 2 that goes to Broward County has got to be preceded by a drop of water coming in from the north. Coming in from the north is from STA 2 and Lake Okeechobee. So we initiated what we call banking, where we started preceding some of that water such that we could continue those water supply deliveries to Broward County to maintain the canal levels. And again, we want to maintain those canal levels to prevent saltwater intrusion into the groundwater underneath in the aquifer, because all of the utilities along the lower East Coast, with the exception of the city of West Palm Beach, they all pull groundwater. So we're looking to maintain that hydrologic ridge, prevent saltwater intrusion by maintaining the groundwaters underneath all the urbanized areas. So we had been delivering water out of Area 2 as the drier conditions persisted deeper into the month of April. A little while ago, probably about a week or two ago, we terminated those deliveries. The canal levels have been slightly declining, but for the most part maintaining. The storm event that came through a couple of days ago helped the situation to prop up the canals, but we do have a bank of water that we can continue to deliver to Service Area 2 should that need continue to arise with persistent drier conditions. Looking at Area 3, which serves Miami-Dade County and Service Area 3, similar story. You can see the green trace is below sort of that tan line on the graphic all the way on the left-hand side. So it is also below its floor elevation. It is continuing to receive inflows from the north through STA 3-4. And we are continuing to make water supply deliveries to Service Area 3 down the Miami Canal. So it's where we are today, just slightly to the west of us. If you took the elevator ride up to the 18th floor, then you looked out, you could see the Miami River right there off in the distance. So we are continuing to make water supply deliveries to Miami-Dade County through the Miami River and through that structure that comes out of Conservation Area 3. All while at the same time continuing to make deliveries to Everglades National Park from Conservation Area 3. That schedule is dictated by something called the Tamiami Trail Flow Formula. It is predicated on more of a rain-driven operations based on stage gauges in the conservation area as well as down in the park. And it, as you can imagine, for the drier times, it has continued to reduce over the last several weeks and months. So right now, it's only calling for about 61 cubic feet per second coming out of Area 3 into Everglades National Park, and we're continuing to maintain those flows. So where it gets a little bit more interesting is if you're looking at the map in the middle, sort of see that stoplight that says ENP East. from that blue line heading down south, that is the South Dade conveyance system. So right now, we're trying to move water coming out of conservation area just north of where that stoplight is, right on the Miami River, and pull that water not only down Miami River off to the east, but also send it all the way down the South Dade conveyance system down to where Homestead is in order to maintain the well field that feeds the Florida Keys Aqueduct Authority. So we're maintaining those groundwater levels. So far, we've been successful in being able to prop up the canal system and maintain the levels that we need to, and we can move that water down there. And again, that rainstorm helped us in doing that. But today, we once again sort of resume those operations of moving water all the way down the South Dade conveyance system to support the Florida Keys Aqueduct Authority. But overall, it's a similar story. Drier conditions have persisted deeper into April and now in the beginning of May, looking for those wet season rains. And for the lower East Coast, all it takes is a really good rainstorm, you know, those typical afternoon showers that you get once that sea breeze action kicks up, and then all things go back to normal. So there's not a whole lot of concern for water supplies along the lower East Coast. There's some management that still has got to be employed in how we allocate water and move water around the system, but with the hopeful pending onset of the wet season here shortly, I'm confident that we should be able to get through the remaining portions of the dry season.
And so, as John said, it is dry. The conditions are drying out quickly in the northern portion of all the water conservation areas. 3A North and 2A are now below ground. Conditions are dry in 2A South and the Central, where the wading birds are nesting and their foraging area is becoming much smaller. Water depth in the Big Cypress Basin is now more than 2.5 feet below ground surface, and the hydraulic conductivity between Shark River Slough, Taylor Slough, and Everglades National Park has diminished, and connectivity to Florida Bay is essentially non-existent. So for conservation, water conservation area 3A, because of that rainfall event that we had last week, the rate of change has gone back into the green, where we had a slower recession rate than previous. However, the water depths, as you can see in the other table, are still below ground surface for the northern portion of 3A, and are still above ground in the southern and did improve a little bit. So the conditions for the wading birds improved slightly, and that rain actually helped us extend the potential for foraging in that area. However, we are very, very dry in the 3A South, where the storks tend to migrate for, tend to be for foraging. And the block of blue that you can see in this graph is the optimum stage and recession rate for this time of year. As you can see, we are well below it. And unfortunately, because of that and because of the duration of it, we are starting to see nest failure. As of end of April, we've seen about 20% of the nests fail in this area. However, if we do get some more rain, that can be reversed. We can start having more successes of the nests, we can get them fully fledged, and we can also start building prey population for the next dry season. So we are really looking for that rain to start. Next, I want to take you over to Biscayne Bay and talk about the Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands Project. So we have a project over here where we are looking to rehydrate the coastal marshes with fresh water in a sheet flow format. And we are then monitor the salinity through a transect from the edge out to the edge of the bay in order to see how we're doing with groundwater and surface water salinities. And for Deering Estate, this data, it shows you that for the last wet season, or last water year, excuse me, we've had our salinities were well improved compared to the previous 5 years. We have lower salinities, and we are well below the threshold of 5 that we wanted to stay below. And we've been doing a really good job for several years now, and that has resulted in some really good changes in the vegetation community that we're monitoring out there. So we're starting to see sawgrass move back into the area. We've actually seen some endangered ferns establishing themselves and maintaining themselves, which is very important. And the native community has really started to flourish. So this is great to see. These are all in the upland habitat areas. And then as you move to there we go, to the bay itself, we've actually seen some improvements there as well. We had some sightings of small-toothed sawfish out in the bay in that general area. We've also seen some starfish moving in, and we've also seen the return of the freshwater seeps out into the more open areas of the bay, which had diminished. They're starting to come back, so that is really good to see. And the last bit of effort that we're doing is we're using prescribed fires to help control invasive plants in that area, so we can improve the native community. So we're seeing a really good news story here at Deering Estate. And lastly, moving down to Florida Bay, talking about salinities again. We are seeing elevated salinities in the bay throughout. This is not unusual for this time of year. If you look at the very bottom graph, the western portion of Florida Bay, you can see that it is just at the threshold of 40, which is hypersalinity. However, it's actually at the bottom of the interquartile range, meaning that this is very common for this time of year. The other areas are also within their interquartile ranges, and they are still below the salinity of 40, which is hypersaline.
All right, so groundwater conditions. You've already heard some earlier this morning about the situation over in Cape Coral, so that condition still continues to persist. But looking at the map over on the lower east coast there in southern Miami-Dade County, those oranges and reds are indicative of the canal levels that I was just referring to in our efforts to move water down the South Dade conveyance system to prop up those groundwater levels. I'll skip that and come to this real quick and come back. But overall, for the drought monitor, I think there was a speaker earlier this morning that referenced this. You can see the drought conditions with that lack of rainfall has begun to expand and progress into the extreme drought categories for the central portion of the water management district. But the drought monitor is that indication of rainfall and soil moisture. So again, just a couple good afternoon storms and that'll reverse itself relatively quickly. But backing up, so a minute ago you heard me express confidence, which is not something that I normally do in these presentations. So hopefully I didn't just jinx it, but part of the basis for that confidence comes from the middle graphic there at the top. The Climate Prediction Center is looking for a slightly above average rainfall for the beginning of the wet season. So that confidence comes from the lower East Coast that once those rains do begin, and the way the wet season works when we talk about rainfall deficits, it's even when you're in a drought, when you get into the wet season, it's not necessarily that it doesn't rain, it just means it doesn't rain as much. So if we jump all the way back in time to the 2000 drought, where Lake Okeechobee hit its second lowest level recorded, we were sitting around this time of year, probably maybe back in April, a little bit of March, and we were looking at very hard at water supply deliveries to Service Area 1, Palm Beach County through Conservation Area 1. But we got a afternoon rainstorm that popped up there in April, and it saved Service Area 1. So it's those type of little rainstorms, once the wet season does kick in, that will be able to provide the water for the lower East Coast and prop up those groundwater elevations and bring those canal levels back up. So it should happen relatively quickly once the rains start. As I said, there's going to be some rains on Monday, but going forward in time after, well, I'll come back to this. Let me just jump to this. Although these graphics are a little outdated from a couple days ago, that rainstorm Monday will come through. It'll have some significant rains from Sunday night into Monday, progressing from the northern part of the system down into the south, down here to Miami-Dade County, and you'll have some light rains through most of the day. But then after that, we'll probably get a little drier spell for the following 7 days, and then it's looking to hopefully flip back to go above normal out there in what is now week 2 from now. But that takes us to hurricane season. So getting into the start of hurricane season, you can see not as quite as many number-wise, higher numbers predicted compared to 2024. But there's still some uncertainty as far as the ENSO phase that we'll be in, meaning La Nina, El Nino, that kind of a thing. So we are seeing still a warmer than normal sea surface temperatures over in the equatorial Pacific, which has a high degree of influence on our weather conditions over here. So jury's still out on what the following dry season will look like, whether or not that will be a La Nina. But right now, there's a higher potential that it could be a La Nina, or an increasing potential that it's a La Nina. And again, La Nina means lower or below average rainfall during the dry season. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that and manage the water resources as best we can as we move forward. And as always, everybody grab their cell phone, scan the QR code, and come see some of the work we do here at the district and join our team, and we can change your lives. With that, Mr. Chair, back to you.
Life-changing. Thank you. Who's got questions or comments? One quick one on going to recruitment of oyster spat, Shell Point and Bird Island. Is there a lag there where we don't know, and is that lag such that it's going to impede the decision we would make as water managers?
We've been trying to get the data from FWRI a little bit more timely,
Okay.
so that we can make those decisions. When we meet with the Corps, we do, every once in a while, we have dry season, and we're getting ready to do our wet season assessment. As part of that dry season assessment, we actually did kind of do a thought experiment of what kind of waters we want to send to the Caloosahatchee, at what rates, what impact that would have. And so we looked at oyster spat, the flow volumes that we would be sending, the salinities that would result, and we tried to balance out the needs. So we kind of put the oyster spat recruitment into the equation before we even started the lake releases to us. That being said, there was concern regarding spat, the larvae being pushed out of the estuary because of the high flows. And we won't know the result of that, unfortunately, until we've already finished it. So the data that we would get, that we need, we won't know until June how we did, unfortunately. But we did have our oyster experts in the room with the Army Corps when we were making these decisions back in January. And so hopefully our crystal balls were working, and we are starting to see the recruitment numbers. So hopefully next month we will see much improved numbers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Butler?
Just following up on, with LACO, we're currently in recovery mode, and calls for maximum flow south. Where you mentioned it in the presentation, but where are we at there? We've rolled back, right?
Correct, actually, although when you're in recovery mode, it allows up to maximum practical. This week and last week, the Corps of Engineers did not request up to maximum practical flows south. So we're continuing to deliver the water supply, the 200 CFS that Cassandra talked about for STA2. But overall, when I looked at it this morning, there's about 2,500 cubic feet per second that's moving out of the lake going south, primarily dominated for water supply.
Looking forward to your forecast for next dry season, how much credence do you put into that right now in terms of management operations? Is there anything management-wise you do right now looking forward that far in advance?
No, I don't put too much credence looking that far out in the sense that we're at what we call a spring predictability barrier right now, where it can go a couple different ways. I think we need to give it a little bit more time and have it come into a little bit more focus before you can start reliably basing management decisions off of it.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, if I could, I got one more. I think I may have asked last month, but Ms. Cassandra, what SAV in Lake Okeechobee, when are we gonna be evaluating SAV amount?
We've got July is the time frame that we do our survey, so we will have information for you at the August board meeting.
The August board meeting, okay.
But I have been asking staff to take pictures when they do go out for any reason, and so I'm hoping we can have those a little prompter to you.
And one more, if I could, Mr. Chair, what, you know, we're bouncing along a water shortage management area, risk of going in. You kind of showed some of that in the predictability chart, but I take it everything's kind of geared up in case we get to a point we've got to install pumps, but at what point do we start looking at that and start mobilizing?
Correct. So the district has already started taking action. So the pumps that you're talking about are the forward pumps on the southern end of Lake Okeechobee to be able to move water out of the lake and feed the canal system south of Lake Okeechobee. The district has already started taking actions. There's some actions at the field station level where they go visit each of those 3 locations and make sure all the electrical conduits and the connections have not deteriorated since the last time. Make sure they're in good shape. We've done that. They are. Simply put, the receptacles are there and ready. We also have a services contract that we have with a vendor who would actually go and install the pump. We've reached out to that vendor and notified them that they need to be prepared and be on standby should they be called upon. So all of that upfront legwork has gone on. In addition to that, we've tested each of the forward pumps. There's about 14 of them. We've tested each one of them, and they're in operable condition. So as far as decision-wise, a number of different factors come into play. One, obviously, forecasts and rains, and where is it raining, where is it not raining, that kind of a thing. Actually, the date on the calendar. Are you sitting here in March and you're at this level, or you're in June and it's at that level? Those mean different things because, as I said, once you cross the water shortage management line, doesn't mean there's automatic actions that take place. But generally speaking, depending on all of those different factors, we start having serious discussions around when the lake gets to 10.8 feet NGVD is when we start making serious discussions about whether or not to install some of the forward pumps and which structure to install them, how many to install at that location, that sort of a thing. And it also comes in conversations with the agricultural community about what sort of crops they have in the ground. Is there a lot of rice that has been planted? It's a water-intensive crop versus other types of crops, and how they're doing in their growing seasons and the spatial distribution of those crops.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Bergeron?
Let me start out with the STAs and the inflows of nutrients versus the capability of clean water moving south. Are those inflows, nutrient levels increasing into the STAs that's making it difficult for us to meet the, what is it, 20 parts per billion leaving the STAs?
Right, it's 19 that we're trying to target, 19 and 13. But no, the concentrations that come into the STAs are very runoff dependent, and it can vary significantly. But there is no increasing trend in nutrients. In fact, the farmers have done a great job with their BMPs to help mitigate any of the nutrient loading. So it's basin dependent and it's timing dependent, but there's no increasing trend in nutrients coming into the STAs.
Yeah, because most of your inflows is from the EAA area.
Yes, sir. Yes.
You have a certain amount coming out of the lake, but, so you're seeing best management practices, you're seeing that, what's, the inflows are getting better to help us achieve our quality of water?
The farmers are doing a great job with their nutrient management, and they routinely meet their nutrient reduction targets that are set by FDACs. But we can see some, depending on how strong a rain event is, like we had last June, we can see some high nutrient concentrations. It's what we call our first flush, meaning the first amount of water that's running off the land tends to have the most quantity of nutrients, and that's just a factor of how the soils work, not any management implications that are being implemented.
John, do we know the nutrient levels, the inflows, what's the level that we can pre-treat and meet the quality that we're trying to achieve? Is it 200 parts per billion in, 20 parts per billion out, or 150 or 300 or?
One thing real quick I'll add to what Cassandra was saying. That conversation about that first flush is something we've spent a lot of time talking about over the last several months because of what happened last year in the month of June. So I'm optimistic that we're going to try to employ some different management measures on how we manage water and move it around the Everglades agricultural area and be able to distribute. We have some interconnections that weren't in place years ago. That we can hopefully be able to distribute that water a little bit better and try some different things that we hadn't been able to because of all the construction activities. We've got some additional treatment cells that are online now with SGA 1 West expansion number 2. So we've got a couple things that we're going to be looking at the start of this wet season such that we do get a big rainfall event right up front like we did in that one June. So hopefully that'll help it. For overall, is there a specific target on the inflows? It's been a while. I'd have to go back and talk with staff a little bit more as to what that may or may not be because it's just been a while since I forget what the previous conversation was.
From a modeling perspective, we modeled them at 150 parts per billion. But that is not necessarily a guarantee that we will get to our outflow targets. It's highly dependent. But the STAs were built and modeled for 150 parts per billion.
Okay, and the other thing is, it seems to me that, we're in a dry season, and it seems like the major concern is water supply. I think the environment is somewhat benefiting from a dry season. To have a healthy wetland, you have to have a dry season and a wet season. And to me, I see a lot of benefits around the lake, all the wetlands around the lake, where even the Area 3, south and north, and it's pretty well dried up and the ground's cracking and aerating, and the silt that forms underwater is oxidizing and dissipating, and then here comes the rains. So, to have a dry wetland every so many years is the way you cleanse a wetland. If it never dries up, you have a lot of silt that forms under the water that chokes out the plant communities. So I don't see a negative from the environmental side, but it's the balance of water supply that it seems like we're a little bit concerned about here. Am I correct in that?
Correct. Right now, the pressure is on water supply with the declining water levels and the lack of rainfall.
Right. not necessarily a negative to the environment. I think you don't want it so dry that the muck can burn or something of that nature, but it's just a wonderful cleansing to see these wetlands dry up every so many years. But it's the balance of water supply that we're a little concerned about the rainy season coming in to make sure we don't have a shortage of water supply, I think.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any further? Thank you both very much. Ms. Smith, we'll go to the monthly financial report with the Lake Belt Mitigation Committee Annual Report for 2024.
Perfect. Good afternoon, Governing Board. I'm going to start off with the financial report. So the monthly financial statement posted on the district's website is through the month of March of 2025, and that can be found under the budget and finance reports. We have collected $820 million in new revenue through the month of March and expended $541 million. Comparing March of 2025 to last March 2024, we've collected $208 million, or 34% more in revenue, and expended $111 million, or 26% more. During the month of March, we collected $101 million and expended $128 million. Over 90% of that $128 million was expended on restoration and O&M. The $820 million in revenue collections is mainly comprised of $447 million from state appropriated funds, mostly for Everglades restoration, and we are, on average, spending $40 to $75 million a month. I'll pause for dramatic effect there. $342 million in revenues from ad valorem, and the remaining $31 million from license, permit fees, leases, sale of district property, and self-insurance. We've expended and obligated 56.3% of the budget. Any questions on that before I move on to Lake Belt Mitigation Committee? So we do this once a year. Just as a refresher, this committee is established in statute, Chapter 373, and the statute requires that the committee annually prepare and submit to the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District a report evaluating the mitigation costs and revenues generated by the mitigation fee. And so just a reminder that mitigation fee is collected by the Florida Department of Revenue, deposited to a trust fund at the South Florida Water Management District. An interagency committee, referred to as the Lake Belt Mitigation Committee, must approve expenditures from that trust fund. And so that committee is comprised of various agencies. Jennifer Reynolds is the committee chair representing South Florida Water Management District. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection has a seat, as well as other agencies: Miami-Dade County Department of Regulatory Economic Resources, Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. EPA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and then a non-voting member of Miami-Dade Limestone Production Associates. So just a quick summary. Most of these financial summaries can be found on page 4 of the report submitted. As far as revenues, the available balance in the Lake Belt Mitigation Trust Fund as of December 31st, 2023 was $14,854,521. During 2024, roughly $2 million was transferred to the trust fund from Florida Department of Revenue. $802,000 was reported as a trust fund investment income, and $308 was earned as interest in the escrow account. During 2024, the approved expenditures from the trust fund were $8,267,322, and the net of revenues to committed funds, as of December 31st, 2024, was $410,388. Those details can be found in Appendix A, or Appendix B, and Appendix C. So some of the approved committee activities this past year were the Abiaki Prairie Restoration Project in the C-139 Basin, which was a project that your engineering and land management staff are overseeing. We also have the Lake Belt Water Quality Monitoring and O&M costs for the Dade and Broward levee structures. That's all I have for you. If anyone have any questions on that.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Smith? Seeing none? No, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, this is Drew.
Hello, Drew.
I would like to go back to my executive director's report just for half a second to correct something I said. It is not Carolina Moran's birthday, but it is Libby Pigman's birthday, and it's a very monumental birthday. I'll just say that. Thank you.
Well, happy birthday, Libby.
Poor Carolina. Mr. Hammond's birthday.
I'm shocked. Molly, is there any general public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Diamond Bergeron.
I think that was the most shocking part of this meeting today, is to find out it's Libby's birthday. Happy birthday, Libby. I'm Diamond Bergeron, speaking on behalf of the Bergeron Everglades Foundation. You all look great in purple today. I know we'd all like to try to beat the Miami traffic, so I'll try to be quick. On behalf of myself and the Bergeron Everglades Foundation, I want to congratulate Mr. Spotswood Jr. and Mr. Hurley on their appointments to the governing board. Robert, you have a beautiful family. It was so special to see all of your children here to support you. You have a lot of them. And I hope that they'll be so inspired by your fight for this state that they're one day sitting up there too. That's what this is all about. Also, I heard my dad's been put in charge of planning your initiation, so I hope you're prepared to wrestle an alligator at some point. We look forward to the great work you'll do in protecting and restoring Florida's water resources, and you are in great company. As you know, you'll be working alongside some of the most dedicated board members, an exceptional executive director, and a staff that somehow makes Everglades restoration look easy, and we all know that it's not. I also want to congratulate Mr. Martinez on receiving the legendary purple jacket today. I'd like to wish a very happy birthday again to Libby. And one last thing. My dad said earlier that he's a proud dad, and I just want to put it on the record that I'm a very proud daughter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bergeron. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment.
Thanks. We'll go down to board comment, and I'll switch it up, and I'll start with Mr. Hurley. Well done. Charlotte?
I just have one thing. Going on the road with the board meetings is really great, and I know it takes a lot of work, so I just wanted to give a shout out to the entire staff team who made this possible. That's all I have. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment off of what Ron Bergeron had mentioned, which I think is true, that you know, as we get into a dry type of a situation, you know, that's an ecological cycle for us. We've had high water in the lake, and that's been problematic for Lake Okeechobee. And as we've seen in the past, the water levels go down and the sunlight can come in, and it's a better ecological situation. You know, certain things dry up, and it's just a natural cycle for us. The issue that we have now is water supply, and the cure to that really is storage. You know, having storage south of the lake, having storage C-43 for the west, EAA, and for lower East Coast water supply. And so I know there's been a lot of conversation about Southland, and I know that we still need to evaluate it, but I think we need to keep an open mind that if it does what it proposes to do, if it's able to solve a seepage issue either in or out, and it's able to store the water, you know, that is another south of the lake storage project. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about it. I know we still need to evaluate it, but it's a solution. If it works, if after we evaluate it, it seems to work, it's another tool we will have for when it gets dry and you have a water supply issue. You know, there's ecological benefits for it getting dry from time to time, and the lake levels going down from time to time, but the storage is really the solution to the water supply issue. So, you know, I would just urge my board members to keep an open mind. I know there still needs to be evaluation that's done, and I think that will happen at some point. But storage is the answer, really, to the water supply issue. We don't have an annual rain problem. You know, we have a problem of keeping the fresh water in a spot for when we need to meter it out. And, you know, I think we need to be mindful of those types of projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron?
Well, it's been a great meeting. It's been an honor to serve with all our board members, and congratulations to our two new members here. You got a lot to think about. But what Scott said is really true. We started this 25 years ago. The EAA reservoir, that's why it's so important to store the water, releasing water for agriculture, water supply, and the compatible water levels that's compatible with the environment under the savings clause. That's a shared resource that will benefit South Florida and future generations. So, two big things. And we're on the threshold of seeing some of the biggest benefits that we've seen since the beginning 25 years ago. The Tamiami Trail, I've already talked about it, equalizing those water levels on the south side and on the north side with shared adversity and shared impacts through this global system. We're right on that threshold. We're within a year and a half to 2 years of doing that. We need to highly prioritize the Blue Shanty to get that project. I wouldn't say prioritize because every project's important, but accelerate. So I think we're in a really good position as we're going forward. And the EAA reservoir will, instead of all this water going out our rivers, destroying the estuaries in the Gulf and the Atlantic, that's a resource that would not be wasted and will be shared and released compatible to the environment, to agriculture, to water supply. And so I'm really excited about the future, and I think we've got some great days ahead of us. And thank you, and I'm getting ready to get on my horse and ride back into the Everglades.
You got to say long live the Everglades.
Yeah.
Mr. Spotswood?
Not much for me. Thank you all again. Thanks again to staff. You know, there's actually one thing. I know I'm from a spot way off here, but a lot of our maps leave Key West off. And so I'd like to make a request to think about that. And, you know, we talk a lot about Florida Bay. But the Everglades goes all the way to Dry Tortugas National Park, and our reef and the Florida Keys have really experienced a lot of change over the last couple of years. And I think a lot of it comes back to what we're talking about here, from Kissimmee to Lake Okeechobee all the way down to the Florida Keys and the reef. So thank you all for having me. Looking forward to working with you.
Thanks. So I want to thank the Miami-Dade Board of County Commissioners again for allowing us to use these incredible facilities today, and the Miami-Dade County staff for all their support. Also, I want to thank our governing board team, the external affairs team and communications team for putting this meeting together. We know it's a ton of work, and we really want to thank you for that. I want to thank Antonio Piloto and his team from the Miami Field Station for their assistance with today's meeting. We can't hold these types of meetings without teamwork from staff throughout the district, and I do think it is good to get out and see the whole district and be able to talk to and be closer to people who we work with and represent. So I think, I know as much work as these are, right, they're really important, so we appreciate it. Molly, I know you and Jill, I know it's a lot of work, but thanks, and all the IT people as well. A vacancy does remain on the Audit and Finance Committee. I think I appointed myself last month. I am now going to unappoint myself. Mr. Hurley, however, I understand that you have volunteered to be part of the Audit and Finance Committee. Say yes? Yes. All right. So we can make that official today. You are now on the committee. Thank you very much. We're going to be back in West Palm for the June Governing Board meeting, June 5th. That's the first Thursday of next month, so it's June 5th. And this meeting's adjourned. Thanks.
Never volunteer for anything.